Chapter 1145. Secret Land of Reincarnation, Reincarnation Island. The atmosphere on the island was calm. It was so calm that it was depressing and depressing. Thousands of years had passed. Although the green jade slip in the hall of the biggest pavilion was still intact, it couldn't change the heavy sorrow in people's hearts. Yi Qinghan and Xiao He couldn't come back. Lord Devourer didn't hide this news. When he saw so many hopeful eyes, Lord Devourer wanted to tell a white lie. However, he didn't have the heart to deceive them. He could deceive them for a while, but could he deceive them forever? Yu Qingcheng and the others didn't feel sad for long. They always wore a faint smile on their faces. They were afraid that their emotions would affect their children, which would affect their lives and cultivation. However, in the dead of the night, they would always meet in that hall. Eventually, they would hug each other and cry. They would sit in the hall and stare at the green jade slip until the next morning. Swoosh! Another air-piercing sound came from the sky. Then, a 9-story pagoda slowly descended. The people in the secret land of reincarnation didn't find this pagoda strange anymore. Every few years, this pagoda would come back and then fly away. Buzz! The pagoda had yet to descend when Jita appeared in midair with 2 stunning women by his side. Jita knew that it would be very difficult for him to make any progress in his cultivation. Thus, he stopped cultivating. He wasn't like Lord Devourer, who was always cultivating with all his might. First, 2 beautiful figures flew out of the pagoda. Then, countless 7th-grade war gods flew out. Finally, a group of young men and women flew out, looking around curiously. A little Xiao Xiao is back. These seedlings are not bad. Leave these 3 to me. I will teach 3 more disciples. Jita looked at Mo Xiao Xiao with a smile and nodded to the enchantress. Although he was greedy for the enchantress's beauty, he didn't dare to touch Yi Qinghan's woman. It was true that he was lustful, but he couldn't bully his brother's wife. This was a moral principle. Even though Yi Qinghan couldn't come back, these years he had been teaching disciples, pursuing Mo Xiao Xiao, and searching for beauties in the secret land of reincarnation. Unfortunately, Mo Xiao Xiao focused on cultivating her mind and didn't care about love affairs. It drove Jita crazy. If it weren't for Lord Devourer, he would have forced himself on her. The disciples were found by Mo Xiao Xiao, the enchantress, and the soul-devouring city's elders from countless subsidiary planes in the god world. Lord Devourer and the enchantress had decided to take revenge. Since Yi Qinghan wasn't here, they had to create another Yi Qinghan. He had found talented people from countless material planes and brought them here. He had given them cultivation techniques, mysterious drawings, dream palaces, and treasures. Moreover, he had sent them to the perilous lands in the reincarnation's secret domain to train geniuses, just like how Lord Devourer had trained Yi Qinghan. Mo Xiao Xiao searched for countless years, but he still couldn't find the secret of the reincarnation mystic realm. In the end, she had to give up, following the enchantress to travel between the material planes and the void, looking for a chance to break through. We have to stop for a while. Inka might have found something wrong and sent some venerables to investigate, but we left in advance, so we didn't get exposed, the enchantress said. Then, she left the task of arranging these geniuses to the elders and teleported away. Her graceful figure appeared in the largest hall. When she saw that the cyan jade talisman on the table in front of the hall was not broken, an intoxicating smile appeared on her face. She stared at the jade talisman affectionately for a moment, and then said faintly, "Little Han, how are you doing in that foreign land? Do you miss us? I know you miss us, but don't think about coming back. It's fine as long as you're living well in that foreign land. Leave the rest to us. We will definitely return to the god world. We will." The enchantress tribe was extremely charming. Once they fell in love, it would last for a lifetime. The women that men in the god realm yearn for the most, the bewitching charm clan, fully deserving of the title. Light blue, light purple. Oh my god, supreme divine emperor, did I see it wrong? Illusion, it must be an illusion. In a passage, Yi Qinghan trembled. He looked at the wall of the passage in front of him in fear and pinched his thigh. More than 10 years had passed. He didn't know how far he had run in the Devil Mountain, how many passages he had entered, how many legions, and how many level 9 experts he had encountered. He found countless passages with different colors, but none of them were light blue or light purple. There wasn't much time left, and he almost lost all hope. At this moment, when he came to this passage and saw the light blue and purple in front of him, he couldn't believe it. He turned around in a panic and touched the wall. Finally, he slapped his thigh again and shouted, "Xiaohei, don't sleep. Come out quickly. That's right. Pandora, tell me, are these light blue and light purple?" "That's right, Big Brother Hanyi. These are light blue and light purple." Pandora, who was coiled around Yi Qinghan's back like an octopus, revealed a sweet smile on her face as she nodded her head heavily. "That's right, boss. You finally found it? Found it? We can go back now. Why, Lord Xiaohei can finally see my son. Boss, I want to cry. What should I do?" Xiaohei materialized in the air, and his face was filled with joy. "Senior Battle Emperor, I found it, I found it." Yi Qinghan was so excited that he almost cried. He called out to Battle Emperor with a choked voice. A shadow appeared, and Battle Emperor nodded and said, "Follow the passage out and follow my instructions." Yi Qinghan waited for the Battle Emperor to enter the divine crystal and immediately flew up. After that, he suddenly stopped, turned his head, and said, "Blackie, aren't you going to enter the Slaughter God Blade?" "I'm not entering, boss. Let's go." Xiaohei turned into a shadow and rushed forward. After devouring Deus's life force, his soul was filled with energy. He wouldn't be afraid even if he was outside for 1,000,000 years. Yi Qinghan hurriedly ran after him with a smile on his face. After running for tens of thousands of miles, the road ahead gradually brightened. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to be careless and extended his divine sense to the limit. After confirming that there were no beings from other planes guarding outside, he shot out like a sharp arrow. Left front, Battle Emperor immediately pointed out a direction for him. His divine sense spread out in all directions, constantly monitoring the situation outside. This was probably the direction of the divine world's forces, and there were no beings from other planes lingering around. "Lava! I see lava! There is a passage to a valley over there." Yi Qinghan was like a bird returning to the sky, flying rapidly in the sky. Xiaohei was also like raptors coming out of a cave. Everywhere he swept past, the entire mountain range turned black. There were originally a few trees, but after he swept past, there was nothing left. Don't panic. There are definitely people guarding the teleportation formation. Also, I built a special teleportation formation in the past. If anyone tries to attack the teleportation formation, I can immediately send a message back to Battle Emperor Palace. You have to kill them instantly. Battle Emperor immediately transmitted a message. After pausing for a moment, he transmitted another message. Also, there are people guarding the teleportation formation in Nifa's abyss. You have to be extremely careful. If you are discovered by Shinta Xiong, you will also die. Ha! Yi Qinghan straightened his spine and held the Slaughter God blade in his hand. His heroic spirit soared to the sky as he laughed heartily. "Since I can return from another dimension, no one can stop me from returning home, not even Shintu Xiong." Chapter 1146. Inside a valley where the mud and stones were all red. Because there was a volcano outside the valley that erupted from time to time, the entire area was covered in reddish-brown. The valley was very large, with a huge transmission array and a small transmission array beside it. However, there were not many people inside. Only a few hundred people were sitting cross-legged in the two transmission arrays, cultivating with their eyes closed. A figure quietly flew into the passage at a very slow speed. When flying, there was only a slight fluctuation in space. If one was not a 9th grade expert, they would not be able to detect it. It was obvious that there were no 9th grade experts in the valley. There were only 2 venerables, dozens of 7th grade war gods, and the rest were 5th grade war gods. Therefore, they did not discover this hidden outsider. Yi Qinghan had to be careful. The War Emperor had told him that the small transmission array beside the transmission array could immediately notify the Guardians in the nefarious abyss and attract Shinta Xiong's attention by injecting divine power into it. Therefore, Yi Qinghan had to kill all these people in an instant quietly. After entering the valley, Yi Qinghan confirmed that there were no hidden experts. He immediately took action. A powerful space force directly pressed down. At the same time, countless soul-poisoned jade daggers sprayed toward the 400 to 500 people in front of him. The soul extermination technique was activated, targeting the venerables closest to the small transmission array. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless pairs of eyes opened when Yi Qinghan released the Space Force. However, when they wanted to move, they found that they could not move at all. They could only look at the green-robed martial artist in fear. Well, is he from the divine realm? The group of guardians were all confused. How could there be someone from the divine realm in the dimensional battlefield? The divine realm did not participate in this dimensional war. It was even more impossible for him to be a survivor of the last dimensional war. Because after every planar war, the martial artists of the various planes would be teleported here. Who was he? What was he going to do? The two venerables wanted to move. Even if they injected a trace of divine power, they would be able to transmit this information to their master, the Star Sovereign. However, they could not move. In the next second, everyone knew what he was going to do, because that person took out a blade, and then a gust of wind blew towards them. After that, a powerful and terrifying wave of strange energy started to corrode their bodies. Even the two most powerful venerables were instantly corroded, and not even a speck of them remained. Oh! Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. The small teleportation circle did not light up, which meant that the warning message had not been sent. He had to be careful. If these people had special abilities and methods, they could suddenly send a signal over and attract the attention of the other side. Then everything would be over. Buzz! An illusory figure condensed in the air. It was the Battle Emperor. Xiaohe had also condensed his soul-devouring beast body, and he looked at Yi Qinghan and the Battle Emperor excitedly. What do we do now? Senior Battle Emperor, why did you only activate this teleportation formation now? Yi Qinghan looked at the huge teleportation formation below. It was extremely simple and complicated, and the complicated patterns on it gave him a headache. Go down, the Battle Emperor said coldly. Then, he floated down and let Yi Qinghan stand in the center of the teleportation formation. Then he said, remember the appearance of that venerable just now, right? Use the ghost transformation to change into his appearance. Remember, once you enter the Nepha's abyss, injure that guardian venerable immediately. Do not kill him, and do not use the power of space. Then, change into his appearance and follow the path I taught you. If you go the wrong way, even a God Emperor Venerable cannot save you. Also, remember the place I told you. Go and collect those 2 pseudo-chaotic divine crystals. Don't let Shen Xiong have it. Yi Qinghan nodded heavily and immediately changed into the appearance of the strongest venerable. At the same time, he kept Xiaohe in the Battle Emperor Palace. The next step was the most crucial one. Otherwise, he would be targeted by Shen Xiong again. This time, without Xiaohe's soul-devouring transformation and the Soul Emperor Pavilion. No one would be able to save him once he was discovered. Kid, I wish you luck. I will help you activate the teleportation formation this time. In the future, I will no longer have the energy to communicate with you through voice transmission. Unless you break the 3rd layer of the seal on the black stone, we will never appear again. It's a pity. I can't see you reach the pinnacle and kill my traitorous disciple with my own eyes. The Battle Emperor looked at Yi Qinghan with a smile. His eyes were filled with love. Then, before Yi Qinghan could react, his remnant soul suddenly ignited. Then, an incomparably huge amount of energy emerged from the remnant soul. At the very least, it was the energy of Yi Qinghan's strongest attack. A moment later, the entire teleportation formation lit up. Yi Qinghan's expression sank, but he did not have the time to grieve. He was swept away by the white light and disappeared from the valley. The valley regained its peace. Apart from a few hundred guardians, it was as if no one had been here. Wang! At this moment, a slight and unstable spatial fluctuation was heard. Then, an old man suddenly appeared in the sky from afar. The old man was dressed in a simple hemp robe. His white hair fluttered in the air, and his face was peaceful. He was no different from an ordinary old man in the immortal world. This old man did not feel like he was teleporting. It was more like he was strolling in the void. He was extremely relaxed, and every step he took covered millions of miles. The terrifying seals in the sky that could kill all the experts in the planar battlefield seemed to be ineffective in front of the old man, allowing him to pass through. What was even stranger was that the countless experts in the planar battlefield, including the ninth-grade supreme martial artists, did not notice this old man. The hemp-robed old man stood in the air above the valley where Yi Qinghan had disappeared. He watched as Yi Qinghan was teleported away and smiled faintly. He nodded slightly and murmured, "You've made some progress in the past 3,000 years. Little friend, work hard and don't fall. Don't make this old man wait for another few hundred eras." The old man pondered for a moment in the sky and continued to walk away. His back view was a little bleak, like a lonely traveler. Swish! This is the Nepha's Abyss, the most desolate place in the divinity world. A white light flashed. Yi Qinghan felt like a long century had passed, but it also felt like only a moment. When his feet finally touched the ground, he immediately opened his eyes and used his divine senses to explore the place. The scene before him was similar to the scene of the battle between the Battle Emperor and the Demon Supremes in the War God Pavilion. The teleportation array was on a stone pillar. It was extremely wide and had no end in sight. Below was boiling hot magma that was emitting black smoke. The temperature was extremely high. Lightning struck down from the sky from time to time, and gray clouds floated in the surroundings, moving around from time to time. The Battle Emperor had explained that these lightning bolts, the black smoke below, and the gray clouds floating in the sky were all seals set by the Battle Emperor. It was to prevent the creatures from the alien planes from attacking. In the past, the Battle Emperor and countless experts from the divinity world fought against the demonic planes here. Relying on the powerful seals, they fought a bloody battle with the experts from the divinity world and successfully killed the enemies. They even suppressed 3 demon supremes under the magma. Of course, the divinity world also paid a heavy price. 3 ninth-grade supreme martial artists, including the Battle Emperor, died, and 8 ninth-grade experts died. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so few ninth-grade experts in the divinity world now. One should know that in the era of the 10 ancient gods, the divinity world dominated countless planes. The demonic planes were the subsidiary planes of the divinity world. Li Fei, why are you back? How did you come back? A figure suddenly condensed in the sky. It was a red-haired old man. Obviously, he stayed in the spatial artifact and was alarmed by the fluctuation of the teleportation array. Something happened. Quickly seal the teleportation array. Otherwise, the experts from the alien planes will rush in. The moment the old man appeared, Yi Qinghan's face immediately became extremely frightened and anxious. He flew towards the red-haired old man hurriedly and shouted. Suddenly, 2 rays of strange light shone in his eyes. Soul Exterminator, activate. Chapter 1147. Ugh! The red-haired elder was originally flying towards Yi Qinghan, but his body stopped in midair. It was obvious that he had been attacked by the Soul Destroyer. Yi Qinghan was still not at ease. He shot out countless soul-poison jade daggers with both hands. After that, he leapt forward. Origin energy revolved around his hands as he grabbed onto the old man's deity world. He squeezed lightly, but he did not manage to crush it. Ah! The elder cried out in pain, but before he could do so, he was thrown into the War Emperor's palace by Yi Qinghan. The War Emperor had told him that this elder was a very important person. If an alien plane were to enter the Nepha's Abyss and kill him, it would immediately trigger the restriction inside. Once the restriction was triggered, Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to escape even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled slightly. He didn't stop and used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. He memorized everything in the vicinity. Then, he carefully flew towards a stone pillar in front of him on the left. According to the War Emperor, His current position had the most restrictions, and most of them were invisible. There was only one way to get through this space safely. One wrong step, and Yi Qinghan would be in trouble. After flying to the stone pillar in front of him on his left, Yi Qinghan paused on it for 3 seconds before continuing to fly towards a short stone pillar that was close to the magma. The restriction set up by the War Emperor was very ingenious. In order to get through, one had to stand on each stone pillar for a certain period of time. Some needed 3 seconds, some 5 seconds, and some even more than 10 seconds. Even if an alien plane's life form discovered the secret and was proficient in restrictions, it wouldn't be able to sneak in. After spending half an hour, Yi Qinghan finally stepped on 109 stone pillars. His speed suddenly increased, and the terrain in front of him became more complicated. There were countless stone pillars of different sizes, and there were also countless caves. Similarly, there were also gray clouds in the caves. Thunder and lightning kept striking down from the sky, and the black shadow coming out from the magma below became thicker. Not only did it reduce visibility, but it also affected the probing of the divine sense. Pseudo-chaotic divine crystal. Yi Qinghan became slightly excited. The Battle Emperor had said that there were 2 pseudo-primal chaos divine crystals in this place, and Shinta Xiong would definitely not be able to find them. A 9th grade supreme martial artist's divine crystal was a chaos divine crystal. It contained the purest energy in the world, and it also had the complete technique to control the power of space. Any warrior could refine it. After refining it, their strength would increase greatly. That year, Lord Devour had advanced from the peak of rank 7 to the upper rank 9. If Jita were to refine it, he would definitely reach peak rank 9, the level of an Ice Queen. According to Battle Emperor, the divine crystal of an expert above 9th level was a pseudo-chaotic divine crystal. Any martial artist could refine it and become a pseudo-9th level martial artist after refining it. His strength was similar to that of Yi Qinghan in the past. He could suppress a venerable, but he was still no match for a real lower rank 9. The divine crystal of a lower rank 9 powerhouse was not worth much, but it was certainly more valuable than the venerable divine crystal. The method to use the power of space in a lower rank 9 divine crystal was not complete. So even if he refined it, he would not be able to control the power of space and become a 9th level martial artist. Years ago, when the demon world attacked the divine world, the Battle Emperor led his people to fight against the demon army in the Nephi's abyss. With the help of powerful restrictions, he successfully annihilated the demon world's army and suppressed their 3 ancestor devils. However, he paid a heavy price. 2 9th grade supreme martial artists died, and the Battle Emperor was also killed by Shinta Xiong's sneak attack. At that time, 8 9th grade supreme martial artists died, and 5 of them were upper rank 9, which meant that they had 5 pseudo-chaotic divine crystals. The Battle Emperor estimated that 3 of them should have been taken by Shinta Xiong, and the other 2 should have been sucked into the restrictions. With Shinta Xiong's level of restrictions, he should not have been able to get them. 2 pseudo-chaotic divine crystals. That means 2 lower rank 9 powerhouses. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone brightly, like a fox smelling the fragrance of meat. He flew even more cautiously. The Battle Emperor had burned most of the energy in his remnant soul. At this moment, no matter how he called for him, he would not appear. If he was killed or trapped by the restrictions, even the heavens would not be able to help him. After a few turns, he flew to a huge stone pillar. Close to the magma, he found a hidden stone cave. The black smoke was the thickest in this place, and his divine sense could only explore a little more than 10 miles away. Could it have been taken away by Shinta Xiong? Yi Qinghan carefully explored the stone cave in doubt. After exploring the stone cave a few times, he still did not find anything. Finally, his eyes suddenly shrank because he saw a seemingly ordinary gray stone in the corner of the stone cave. This stone had emitted a trace of energy just now, which was detected by Yi Qinghan. Using a trace of divine power, Yi Qinghan carefully avoided the gray fog in the stone cave and entangled the gray stone. Buzz! A pure and domineering aura was transmitted from the gray stone. The gray stone suddenly released a dazzling light. Light waves flowed on its surface, and it looked like the most beautiful gem in the world. Ah, the first pseudo-primal chaos god crystal is mine. Yi Qinghan grabbed it and felt the pure energy within. He fiddled with it for a while, unable to put it down. He felt a bit of pity in his heart. Originally, Deus's god crystal was also a pseudo-primal chaos god crystal. It was just that it had been swallowed by Xiao He. But thinking that if Xiao He did not swallow it, it would not have been so easy to kill him, Yi Qinghan felt relieved. After keeping the pseudo-primal chaos god crystal in the Battle Emperor Palace's treasure vault, Yi Qinghan flew towards another direction. An hour later, he obtained another pseudo-primal chaos god crystal. The Battle Emperor did not lie to him. This restriction was very complicated. If not for what he had said, Yi Qinghan would not have been able to obtain it. The item is mine. Yi Qinghan no longer hesitated. He turned into the red-haired old man. He flew towards the outside. After flying for an hour, the terrain in front of him gradually became narrower. Of course, this was relative to the terrain behind him. This place was still tens of thousands of miles wide. The place where Yi Qinghan teleported in was the widest. Even with his powerful divine sense, he could not detect the end of it. He had no idea how wide it was. The further he flew, the narrower the tunnel became. It was now only 100 miles wide. Yi Qinghan became even more excited. Because the Battle Emperor had said that when the tunnel was only 10 miles wide, there would be a teleportation portal there. He would be able to teleport directly to the plaza of the Supreme Island. Supreme Island, the realm of the gods. Yi Qinghan could feel that his nose was no longer smelling the pungent smell of sulfur. Instead, it was the familiar smell of the realm of the gods. His flying speed also became faster. When the tunnel was more than 10 miles wide, Yi Qinghan's speed gradually slowed down. He extended his divine sense limitlessly to check the situation in front of him. There was a teleportation portal in midair. Originally, there was a palace nearby. But now, this palace had floated above the Supreme Island. There was no one in the tunnel. Yi Qinghan did not know how to activate the teleportation portal, nor could he activate it. Otherwise, once he teleported to the plaza of the Supreme Island, he would be locked onto by countless divine senses. Yi Qinghan did not fly towards the teleportation portal. Instead, he flew towards the fiery red wall on the left. There was a huge grayish-black cloud surrounding the wall. It looked no different from the grayish-black cloud outside, except that the color was darker. Yi Qinghan flew towards the grayish-black cloud without hesitation. This was what the Battle Emperor had told him. There was a small hidden teleportation portal here. Yi Qinghan trusted the Battle Emperor's words. Otherwise, he would have died many times by now. As expected, there was a small tunnel hidden in the wall of the grayish-black cloud. There was a small teleportation portal in the tunnel. Chapter 1148. Yi Qinghan's appearance changed again. He was wearing a black robe and a conical bamboo hat with a huge sword hanging on it. His figure had also become much taller and more muscular. His chin was covered with a full beard, and he had turned into a rough and burly man. He stepped into the teleportation formation and followed the Battle Emperor's instructions to pour in his divine power. The teleportation formation suddenly lit up. With a flash of white light, the scene in front of Yi Qinghan changed. He appeared in a small loft. This loft was obviously very hidden. Yi Qinghan did not discover any divine sense probing him. Yi Qinghan quietly flew out and appeared on the street outside. He then slowly walked towards the plaza with a sullen face. He looked at the familiar buildings, the streets, and the endless flow of martial artists in the plaza. Listening to the excited discussions of the martial artists and smelling the familiar faint fishy smell in the air of Supreme Island, Yi Qinghan had an inexplicable feeling of crying. Immortal Realm, I'm back. Have you heard? When the Chief Pavilion Master comes out, he will appoint 3 new Deputy Pavilion Masters to take charge of everything in the Immortal Realm. Are you talking about Shintawuxie, Shintawuji, and Shintawuya? I don't remember them before. I think they are orphans adopted by the Chief Pavilion Master. In just a few thousand years, their strength has skyrocketed. It is said that they have reached the ninth grade realm and were given the surname Shinto by the chief pavilion master. These three lords are so powerful. Their talents are unparalleled. I reckon they are the most talented people in the past million years. No wonder they are valued by the chief pavilion master. Umph. How can they be considered the most talented people? Have you forgotten one person? The one who broke through the ninth grade realm in 100 years. You mean Han Yisho? Do you want to die? How dare you talk about this in the sacred city? Stop it. Yi Qinghan stood at the side of the plaza. The whispers of a few martial artists in a restaurant on the left caught his attention. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows. He did not expect anyone in the immortal realm to remember him. Shinto Wuxia, Shinto Wuji, Shinto Wuya, ninth grade realm? Yi Qinghan did not need to think to know that Shinto Xiong used the three pseudo-chaotic divine crystals to create experts. It seemed that after being trapped for 1,000,000 years, Shinto Xiong did not trust the war god pavilion elders. He chose 3 talented orphans and raised them since they were young. This way, they would be completely loyal to him. Of course, there was the possibility that they were Shinto Xiong's sons. Yi Qinghan's face turned gloomy as he turned into a cold giant and strode towards the center of the plaza. Since the specter transformation could fool the 6 light gods, Yi Qinghan believed that no one on the Supreme Island would be able to discover his true identity unless he attacked or revealed the Slaughter God Blade. Of course, he did not plan to stay on Supreme Island for long. After all, he had killed the Guardian of the planar battlefield and captured the Guardian of the Nepha's Abyss. He would be discovered sooner or later. His divine sense quietly scanned the entire Supreme Island. From the looks of it, Shinto Xiong had already completely unified the entire immortal realm. There were countless experts on the Supreme Island. It was unclear how many 7th grade war gods there were, but there were more than 100 venerables. Finally, Yi Qinghan looked at the Eternal Palace, which was floating in the air. Finally, Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and looked at the Eternal Palace, which was floating in the air. He tried his best to suppress the killing intent in his heart. He sighed. His enemy was right in front of him, but he did not dare to make a move. He did not even dare to show his killing intent. After handing over the divine stones, Yi Qinghan stepped into the teleportation portal and left. He found out that Supreme Island was completely sealed. The only way to leave was through the teleportation portal. There were only 10 teleportation portals on the plaza. Obviously, one was for the Nepha's Abyss, while the others were for the 9 Guardians Island. As expected, a white light flashed. Yi Qinghan teleported to one of the islands. Yi Qinghan looked at the island, which was as lively as Supreme Island. He felt a sense of mockery. It seemed like the martial artists of the divine world were indeed forgetful. Back then, when the demons descended, the tens of thousands of islands in the Star Sea were killed and demonized. The entire divine world hated Supreme Island. When the Star Monarch became the most powerful person in the divine world and unified the divine world, they all came to his side. I wonder how Flame Dragon City and Soul Eater City are doing now. Lei Jin and Archie didn't leave back then. I'll go take a look. If they're not dead, I'll bring them along. Yi Qinghan wanted to sneak out of the Star Sea and go to the sky above Seoul, the Arch Island. He wanted to fly to the reincarnation mystic realm through a weak spot in the void. However, when he thought that no one in the divine world would notice him as long as he did not make a move, he wanted to go to Ethereal City. Lei Jin, Archie, you must not die. All right. In Supremacy Li Quan, Ling Er's mother, Yu Duanfei. When Yi Qinghan thought of these people, he immediately felt anxious. He teleported away from the island, startling the people around him. Who would have thought that this black-faced burly man was actually a venerable? However, there were too many supremacies on Supreme Island. No one noticed this face that had never appeared before. On the Star Sea, a burly figure teleported continuously at an extremely fast speed. However, it was obvious that Yi Qinghan did not want to expose his identity as a rank 9. He did not teleport as he pleased. Instead, he did not dare to teleport too far away like normal supremacies, avoiding the cracks in space. Looking at the familiar starry sea, Yi Qinghan thought of the past when he brought Wind Emperor Wushan and the others and was chased by the 10 billion starry army here. Then, he thought of how he fought in the entire starry sea alone. Looking at the surrounding scenery, he couldn't help but sigh. Deep down, he was extremely anxious. He even had the urge to turn around and go to Soul the Arch Island. He was afraid that when he went to Soul Eater City and Flame Dragon City, he would see two ruins and hear how Lei Jin and the others were killed. He was afraid that in a fit of anger, he would want to kill people crazily and alert Shinto Xiong. In the end, he chose to teleport towards the ethereal land. He would not be at ease if he did not take a look. He could only tell himself that he should not be impulsive. However, his teleportation speed was much faster. Lei Jin sat in a daze on the top floor of the Flame Dragon City Lord residence. Through the shield of the window, he looked at the empty square below and the occasional sparse figure on the street. His heart was filled with sadness. In the past month, the number of martial artists in Flame Dragon City had left very quickly. Originally, there were more than 20,000 Yi family soldiers in the city. In addition to some loyal citizens of Yi Qing'an, there were more than 30,000 people in total. However, in this month, at least half of the 30,000 people had left. The huge Flame Dragon City, a super city that could accommodate millions of people, now only had a little more than 10,000 people. Wasn't this ironic? I guess there are less than 20,000 people in Soul Eater City. The Thunder Emperor laughed bitterly. Originally, he and Emperor Yu had stayed behind because they wanted to be buried together with the loyal citizens of the city. After all, Lord Devour and Yi Qinghan did not manage the city at that time. In a sense, he and Emperor Yu were the real city lords of the two cities. However, now that everyone in the city had left, what was the point of him staying behind to guard an empty city? Shinto Wuji is here. Looks like Star Sovereign is going to make his move soon. Lei Jin swung his unruly purple hair. His heart was getting heavier. The reason why half of the martial artists in Flame Dragon City and Soul Eater City had left was because the ethereal sovereign had been replaced. One of the 3 deputy pavilion masters, one of the 3 most talented martial artists in the past 10,000 years, Shinto Wuji, had become the new ethereal sovereign a month ago. Grade 9. The experts of the ethereal continent had easily detected Shinto Wuji's strength. The ethereal sovereign had been replaced, and a grade 9 at that. This meant that Star Sovereign had the intention to completely control the ethereal continent. It also meant that he was going to make his move against Flame Dragon City and Soul Eater City. Sigh. Lei Jin pondered for a long time, and finally he made a difficult decision. He flew out of the city lord's residence and activated his divine power. He shouted, "All ye family soldiers and citizens of the city, gather at the square." Xiao. Countless figures soared into the sky without a trace of hesitation. The martial artists that were still in the city at this moment were all absolutely loyal. Although they were very confused as to why City Lord Lei Jin had summoned them, they still flew towards the plaza as fast as they could. The 12,000 Yi family soldiers lined up neatly in midair. Although there were fewer people, the formation was still neat. The thousands of citizens stood in midair silently, looking at Lei Jin, whose purple hair danced in the air like a demon. Lei Jun's eyes flashed with a trace of pain. Then he became extremely determined and shouted, "As the city lord of Flame Dragon City, I order that from today onwards, Flame Dragon City shall be disbanded. The Yi family soldiers shall be disbanded. Everyone shall leave Flame Dragon City and find their own cities to settle down in." There were still over 10,000 people. 10,000 most loyal martial artists. Lei Jin did not want their futures and lives to be ruined just like that. He would defend Flame Dragon City alone until the end. However, even the echoes of Lei Jun's loud shout had disappeared. However, not a single person spoke, and not a single person moved. All of them stood straight and silently looked at Lei Jin, as if they had become statues. "What are you all standing here for? Get lost! If you don't get lost, I will throw you out one by one." Lei Jin roared furiously. However, seeing the determined gazes, Lei Jin's tiger eyes shed a few drops of hot tears. Then he roared again. "What's wrong? You little bastards, You don't even listen to me anymore? There was another deathly silence. After a while, a weak voice sounded. City Lord, Han Yi-jun will come back. We believe in him. After the voice, there was another deathly silence. However, the eyes of the 10,000 people in the sky became even more determined. Lei Jun was speechless. He had told them before that Han Yi would come back, but he didn't think that everyone would believe him so much. Or did they believe in Yi Qinghan that much? Of course he believed that Yi Qinghan would come back, but not now. It had only been a few thousand years. No matter how powerful Yi Qinghan was, could he become a 9th grade supreme martial artist? Wong. At this moment, in the plaza below, a teleportation array suddenly lit up, confusing Lei Jun and everyone else. This teleportation array had not lit up for a few thousand years. A tall and sturdy figure appeared in the teleportation array. He wore a war god's robe and wore a conical bamboo hat. He held a large sword in his hand and stood in the teleportation array in a daze. He slowly turned his head and looked at the scenery around him. A few drops of tears actually fell from his eyes. Flame Dragon City is still here. Chapter 1149. Who is this? Lei Jun looked suspiciously at the tall and sturdy man standing on the plaza. He had a bad feeling. Was Shintawuji going to make a move? That's not right. Why did he only send one person? Furthermore, Lei Jun felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity from this person. But when he focused his eyes, he didn't recognize him at all, until a voice transmission sounded. Uncle Lei Jun, long time no see. At this moment, it was as if Lei Jun had heard a sudden clap of thunder. His body almost fell to the ground. In the entire God realm, there was only one person who called him Uncle Lei Jun. Furthermore, this voice was extremely familiar. No wonder he felt a sense of familiarity when he saw the figure. It was Yi Qinghan. Lei Jun was also an ambitious person. After a moment of excitement, he calmed himself down. He slowly flew down and tried to suppress the trembling in his heart. He said solemnly, "Why did you come to Yin Dragon City? Under the orders of my city lord, I have come to discuss some matters with City Lord Lei." Yi Qinghan was careful and said lightly, "Yi family army, listen up. Everyone return and wait for my next order." Lei Jun nodded and turned to order the Yi family army. Then, he turned to Yi Qinghan and said, "Sir, please." The two slowly flew towards the City Lord Mansion. Although there weren't many people in Yin Dragon City, there might be spies from the Star Sovereign. If they found out that Yi Qinghan had returned, the Star Sovereign would rush over immediately. After entering the City Lord Mansion, Lei Jun immediately opened the barrier. Then, he turned to look at Yi Qinghan and said, "You." Yi Qinghan smiled. He knew that his appearance and soul aura had changed into another person. Lei Jun would definitely be hesitant. He didn't explain and walked towards the teleportation array in the corner of the hall. He activated the teleportation array and sent a voice transmission. "Uncle Lei Jun, let's talk in Sealed God Valley." Lei Jun completely believed him this time. Because this teleportation array wasn't on his side, he didn't know how to activate it. However, Yi Qinghan casually walked in and disappeared from the hall. The moment he entered the Sealed God Valley, Yi Qinghan looked at the familiar scenery and the palaces. Once again, he had the urge to cry. Seeing Lei Jun come in, he quickly controlled his emotions. His body slowly transformed and returned to his original appearance. He strode over and hugged Lei Jun. He laughed loudly. "Uncle Lei Jun, it's great that you're alive." Lei Jun hugged Yi Qinghan tightly, and even heavily hammered Yi Qinghan's back a few times. Only then did he carefully examine Yi Qinghan. He laughed loudly and said, "Ha, little Han, it really is you. It really is you. I knew it. I knew you would come back. Phew, I almost died this time." Yi Qinghan sighed. He had never imagined that he would be able to return to the God world, and couldn't believe it. There wasn't much time left, so Yi Qinghan didn't waste any time. He brought Lei Jun to the main hall and asked him about the situation in the immortal realm. Then he quickly told Lei Jun about what had happened in the past few years. "You were attacked by demons, and you fell into a black hole, went to a distant plane, finally came back through the plane battlefield." Lei Jun acted as if he had heard a fantasy story. He was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. If it wasn't Yi Qinghan who said it, he definitely wouldn't believe it. There was someone who was demonized by a demon monarch and didn't die. Didn't die after falling into a black hole? Even sneaking into someone else's plane? In the end, he would be able to pass through the planar battlefield and silently return? Lei Jun wasn't sure how powerful a demon monarch was, but he had heard a bit about the black hole. As for the plain battlefield, it was beyond his imagination. He had heard of the plain battlefield, but he had never heard of anyone who could enter and leave the plain battlefield so easily. Lei Jun sighed. This brat's strange experiences could be written into a book. Wrong. He had always been a legend, a miracle. Buzz! Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and the slaughter god's saber appeared in his hand. Following that, a black shadow rushed out from the slaughter god's saber and condensed into the shape of a soul-devouring beast. Xiaohe looked at the familiar palace and was excited. Finally, he looked at Lei Jun and smiled. Lei Jun, long time no see. You have become more handsome. Lord Xiaohe, you are still as mischievous as ever. Lei Jun smiled. He was truly happy for Xiaohe. He didn't die after using the soul-devouring transformation. If that old man Li Quan heard about this, he would definitely go crazy with joy. Pandora, come and greet my uncle Lei Jun. Yi Qinghan teleported Pandora out. Pandora shyly bowed to Lei Jun and obediently called out, Uncle Lei Jun. Hi, you brat. Your flirtatious nature hasn't changed. You actually managed to kidnap a beauty from another realm. If Alluring Fireworks sees this, she will definitely punish you. Lei Jun secretly transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan and teased him. Then he affectionately nodded to Pandora and said, Hello, Pandora. Welcome to the immortal realm. You can treat this place as your home. Then Lei Jun suddenly thought of something. He slapped his forehead and shouted, Duanfei, stop your seclusion and come out. What are you doing? Why are you so excited? A figure with a mature charm suddenly appeared in the hall. She looked at Lei Jun with a face full of charm. Then, she suddenly turned her head and looked at Yi Qinghan beside her. Her pupils rapidly narrowed as she shouted, You? It's you? Little Han, why are you back? Greetings, mother-in-law. Mother-in-law is still as elegant as ever. It seems that you and my father-in-law have been living well these past few years. Yi Qinghan was in a good mood when he saw Duanfei and joked. On the other hand, Little Black was winking at the two of them. Pandora, however, did not understand the subtlety of it and only smiled reservedly. How dare you tease me, brat? Where's Ling Er? Why didn't Ling Er come back with you? Duanfei grabbed Yi Qinghan's ear and vented all the anger and worry she had for Ling Er on Yi Qinghan's ear. Stop fooling around, Duanfei. Let's talk business first. Lei Jun was in a good mood. Today was the happiest day he had in a few thousand years. Yi Qinghan also thought about the urgency of the matter. It would be troublesome if the guardian of the Nephi's abyss was discovered. He said seriously, Uncle Lei Jun, let's discuss how to get Emperor Yu and Honorable Li Quan to come here secretly and gather together. Then, I'll bring you to the secret realm of reincarnation. Lei Jun had just told Yi Qinghan that Honorable Li Quan and Duanfei had secretly scattered their clansmen to different places and into the secret realm. They didn't leave because they were worried about their clansmen, while Lei Jun and Emperor Yu were worried about the people in the two cities. Now that Yi Qinghan had returned, they naturally had to leave together. After all, no one really wanted to seek death. Lei Jun pondered for a moment and stopped Duanfei's questioning with his eyes. After a while, he said, That's easy. Send a message to get them to teleport together. We'll put our subordinates into the spatial divine tool, and you'll bring us into your spatial divine tool. Then we'll teleport all the way. The fastest speed in the Blood Night Sea is teleportation. We can reach a city near Soul Emperor Island in half a day. Then we'll enter the spatial turbulence from there. Even the Star Monarch won't be able to react so quickly. Yi Qinghan and Lei Jun quickly discussed again and finally came to a decision. Yi Qinghan had the War Imperial Palace, Lei Jun and Duanfei. Honorable Li Quan and Emperor Yu had been bestowed a spatial divine tool by Lord Devour. They could easily bring over 100,000 people. Finally, Yi Qinghan made the final decision and said, Uncle Lei Zhen sent a message to them. There's no time to lose. Let's leave immediately. We're going to the reincarnation's secret realm. Lei Zhen nodded and took out the communication jade talisman to send a message to Honorable Li Quan and Emperor Yu. The reply came very quickly, but it was only from one person. Lei Zhen's expression changed when he saw it, and he said anxiously, Oh no, Shintawuji has brought people to Soul Eater City. Honorable Li Quan is preparing to go there. Little Han, what do we do? Shintawuji? A cold light flashed in Yi Qinghan's eyes. He suddenly stood up and said loudly, Ask Honorable Li Quan to bring people here and wait for me. Settle everyone down. I'll make a trip to Soul Eater City. As he spoke, Yi Qinghan picked up the slaughter god's saber and stored Pandora into the War Imperial Palace. Then he rushed out and shouted at the dazed Xiaohe, Xiaohe, let's go. Follow me to kill people. Chapter 1150. Soul Devourer's City. The waves of the wandering sea kept crashing against the foundation of Soul Devourer's City. Through the transformation of the restrictions, the city was still reverberating with faint celestial music. Thin white mist shrouded the city, creating a beautiful scene like a fairyland. However, it was a pity that this huge city, which was famous throughout the entire God realm, had become extremely deserted. Only 10,000 warriors were gathered in front of the city lord's mansion. Their expressions were serious, and their eyes were filled with killing intent. It was a stark contrast to the beautiful scenery of the city. In front of the city lord's mansion, the handsome Emperor Yu stood proudly in the sky, calmly looking at the people flying over from the plaza. At the front was a tall man. His golden hair fluttered in the wind, and his handsome face was solemn. His tiger-like eyes flashed with light. There was no divine power around him, but he had a terrifying aura. On the left was an old friend, the former misty monarch Li Tao. Behind him were also old friends, Piao Xiang, Yu, and Mie Tian. Only 5 people had come, but the faint murderous intent on them quietly permeated the city. The Spirit Devourer army, which had more than 10,000 soldiers, felt as though they were facing 10 billion star soldiers. The pressure was so heavy that they couldn't breathe. Emperor Yu felt the communication jade talisman at his waist vibrate, and he smiled bitterly. Lei Zhen wanted him to bring people to Flame Dragon City? If this message had been sent earlier, he might have been able to, but now he knew that he could not leave, because he saw the killing intent in Shintawuji's eyes. Since Shintawuji had chosen to come to Soul Devourer's City instead of summoning him, it meant that he did not want them to be an eyesore. Shan Shan, are you living well in a foreign land? You must live happily. Please forget a useless man like you. If possible, I will marry you in the next life. Of course, I will become stronger, and I will not let you wander the world. Emperor Yu silently thought of Senior Elder Jiao Shanshan, who had left with Lord Devour. His heart ached, but his body exploded with a monstrous fighting intent. With a wave of his hand, a giant black axe appeared in his hand. He lifted his head and laughed. Soul Devourer army, get into formation and follow me to welcome our guests. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. More than 10,000 soul-devouring city soldiers immediately lined up behind Emperor Yu in a special formation, forming a pentagram. Emperor Yu still stood on one of the corners of the pentagram, proudly looking forward with a wanton smile on his face. Emperor Yu, you could be considered a genius. Submit to me, and I will spare your life. The 5 people in front stood a few thousand meters away from Emperor Yu. The other 4 looked at Emperor Yu mockingly. Shintawuji, who was at the very front, spoke indifferently. Even though he was standing on the same level, he felt as if he was looking down on everyone else. Ha! Emperor Yu raised his head and laughed. His heroic appearance made even Shintawuji, who was his enemy, feel some admiration. Otherwise, he would have attacked long ago. Emperor Yu's arrogant gaze swept across the city. Finally, it fixed on Shintawuji. The Archyu used to be from the Star Sea as well. I was also the leader of a small god-bandit army. Although I was not very talented, I was unrestrained and unrestrained. I never submitted to anyone. But after I met the Soul Emperor and my big sister, I was truly convinced. The Soul Emperor was extremely talented and refined the Soul Emperor Pavilion. His name shook the divine realm. My big sister treats me like her own sister and treats enemies like frost. Be it in terms of intelligence or methods, she is unparalleled in the world. If not for that devil monarch descending, Shin'Xiong would have waited another 1,000,000 years to come out of seclusion. Who knows what the divine realm would be like now? I am convinced by the Soul Emperor and my big sister. May I ask, Shintawuji, what qualifications do you have to convince me? What qualifications do you have to make me submit to you? His arrogant voice resounded throughout the entire soul-devouring city. The morale of the soul-devouring army of more than 10,000 was greatly boosted by Emperor Yu. On the other hand, apart from Shintawuji, everyone's expression changed. Heaven Destroyer supremacy was suppressed by Emperor Yu's aura. When he thought of the sagely heaven supremacy, he felt somewhat ashamed. However, they had chosen this path today, so they could only continue walking it. Impudent, Emperor Yu, you are still so arrogant even before death? My lord reached rank 9 in 3,000 years. With such talent, who in the divine realm can compare to you? You cultivated for 1,000,000 years to reach the supremacy level. With such talent, if not for the monarch's benevolence, the city would have been destroyed long ago. I gave you face, but you don't want it. The devilish purple-haired supremacy Piao Xiang saw that Shintawuji didn't speak and immediately stepped forward to shout angrily. Shintawuji's surname was Shintu, and he had the strength of rank 9. It was obvious that he would have the power to rule over the divine realm in the future. How could supremacy Piao Xiang not curry favor with him? Emperor Yu snorted coldly and looked at supremacy Piao Xiang mockingly. Shut up. I am talking to your master. When did a dog like you have the right to bark here? Moreover, back then, Frigid Night Sovereign broke through to rank 9 in 100 years. What does 3,000 years count as? Supremacy Piao Xiang, it is not that I, Emperor Yu, am looking down on you. Although you have been a supremacy for hundreds of thousands of years, if you dare to come over, I will make sure your blood splatters 5 feet high. Yu, supremacy Piao Xiang's face turned green from anger. She looked at Shintawuji and revealed a trace of playfulness in her eyes. However, she had no intention of speaking. She gritted her teeth and bowed. Monarch, Piao Xiang requests to fight. The corners of Shintawuji's mouth curled into a faint smile. He had been bitterly cultivating in the Eternal Palace since he was young. Not long ago, he had finally come out. Now that there was something fun to do, he had to have some fun. Hence, he gently nodded his head. Supremacy Piao Xiang revealed a cruel smile. She did not believe that a person who had just become a supremacy a few days ago would be her match. Origin energy revolved around her body, and a huge sand iron rod appeared in her hand. Her eyes were filled with hatred and coldness as she slowly pressed forward. Emperor Yu did not move. He only looked at Piao Xiang with a solemn expression. The 10,000-plus Yi family soldiers behind him did not move either. Instead, they strangely closed their eyes. Stubborn bastard, die. Supremacy Piao Xiang's speed gradually increased, and her aura rapidly rose. When her speed reached its limit, her aura also rose to its peak. At this moment, the distance between her and Emperor Yu was only 100 meters. When she saw that Emperor Yu still did not move, her face was filled with a sinister smile. The iron rod in her hand suddenly became longer and thicker. Origin energy and divine power revolved around the iron rod. It turned into a series of afterimages as it smashed down towards Emperor Yu's head. You can escape a natural disaster, but you can't escape a self-inflicted disaster. Emperor Yu faintly smiled. At this moment, his aura violently exploded. The black giant axe also rapidly grew. The 10,000-plus soul devourer soldiers behind him released a monstrous aura as their bodies lit up. If one looked from above, they would see a shining 5-pointed star. Lines that were invisible to the naked eye flowed through the 5-pointed star before finally converging on Emperor Yu's body. Wrath of the Butterfly Dance. Slash. The black giant axe released a horrifying aura. Origin energy revolved around it as it cleaved down at the iron rod that was smashing down at Emperor Yu's head. The speed seemed very slow, but at this moment, Li Tao's expression instantly changed. Moon Chaser and Heaven Destroyer's expressions also sank. Shinto Wuji's eyes flashed with a strange look, but he did not stop it. Bang! The seemingly horrifying iron rod collided with the slowly cleaving black giant axe. What shocked Supremacy Piao Xiang was that the iron rod transmitted a huge force. This force was actually comparable to Paragon Elysium's strongest attack. He felt a pain in his arm as the iron rod flew out. He looked at the slowly flying giant axe and wanted to dodge, but he discovered that his body could not move at this moment. How is this possible? Monarch Wuji, save me! Supremacy Piao Xiang stared helplessly as the black giant axe cleaved down on his head. In the next second, he felt an intense pain on his forehead. Then, he fell into the darkness of eternal night. Supremacy Piao Xiang dead. Chapter 1151. The huge black axe looked slow, but it was actually as fast as lightning. In a second, it had sent the metal pole flying and shattered Venerable Fragrance. After that, it continued flying towards the people in front. Its target was Shinto Wuji, who was at the very front. Monarch, Li Tao, and Venerable Moon-Chasing Sky Destroyer were shocked. They hurriedly shouted and were about to block Shinto Wuji. If Venerable Fragrance died, then so be it. It did not matter. Instead, they were stirring up trouble. If Shinto Wuji died, then they would all die. Shinto Wuji revealed a mocking smile. He leisurely extended a hand and waved, stopping them. His eyes were filled with interest towards the giant axe that was whistling towards him. Wrong! He was very interested in this kind of joint attack formation. With his strength, he could obviously see why this giant axe could so easily kill Venerable Fragrance. It was not because Emperor Yu's strength had reached grade 9 under the joint attack of over 10,000 people. It was because this joint attack formation possessed a soul attack that could suck away one's soul, causing Venerable Fragrance to be unable to move. He had a Transcendent Grade artifact, but if he could obtain this Transcendent Grade artifact, as well as the joint attack formation, his strength would increase once again. Therefore, he leisurely made his move. He extended a slender hand and waved it left and right. As his hand moved, the spatial power in the air of Soul Devourer's city began to gather towards him. Then, he made a very mighty gesture. With one hand on his waist and the other supporting the sky, light circulated around his hand as he fearlessly grabbed at the terrifying butterfly's wrath. Hadai! Seeing Shinto Wuji's arrogance, Emperor Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. With a roar, the light within his body shook once again. The white light and his black face formed a sharp contrast, making him look even more mighty and handsome. Bang! A light sound rang out. What made everyone's eyes fall to the ground was that Shinto Wuji's body only sank slightly. His hand, which was surrounded by origin energy, really grabbed the blade of the giant black axe. Then, he faintly smiled. His aura suddenly burst forth. With a forceful flip of his hand, he threw the giant black axe into the square below. It sank 5 feet deep, swaying in the cool breeze. Puff! More than 10,000 members of the soul-devouring army vomited blood at the same time as they slowly fell to the ground. Clearly, they were heavily injured. Only Emperor Yu's face was pale. He stubbornly stood in the air, but his body was trembling. They had released the strongest joint attack formation, their minds connected with the dancing butterfly dance. They were using the magical technique that Lord Devour had created to gather all of their energy into the dancing butterfly dance. At this moment, Butterfly Dance's Fury's connection with Shinto Wuji had been forcefully severed. Her soul had been severely injured, and she was clearly unable to continue fighting. Shinto Wuji lightly clapped his hands, seemingly unharmed. He looked at Emperor Yu indifferently and said sternly, "Emperor Yu, I will give you 2 choices. First, everyone dies. soul-devouring city had been reduced to ashes. Second, you don't have to die. I'll let you go as long as you hand over the joint attack technique. Emperor Yu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and faintly smiled. He slowly looked around at the beautiful soul-devouring city and closed his eyes. To be able to be with soul-devouring city forever is my greatest dream. Children of the soul-devouring army, tell me, do you want to stay here forever and listen to the Chow-in of the wandering ocean? Over 10,000 people, although their faces were pale and filled with pain, they staggered to their feet at the same time. They straightened their spines and shouted, "We are willing to follow Emperor Yu and stay in soul-devouring city forever." Ha! Emperor Yu raised his head to the sky and laughed again. Being able to kill Venerable Fragrance today was already a pleasant surprise. He no longer cared about Shinta Wuji and the others. He only smiled and looked into the sky. It was as if he could see through the sky and see the endless void. He could see Jiao Shanshan's beautiful face in the distant reincarnation mystic realm. What a pity, Shinta Wuji sighed slightly. It was unknown if he was sighing because of the fall of such a heroic figure, or because he couldn't obtain the dancing butterfly dance's joint attack formation. He waved his hand and let Li Tao and life chasing annihilating heaven take action. Wang! At this moment, a teleportation formation suddenly lit up. Li Tao and the others, who had already taken a few steps forward, suddenly stopped. Their pupils constricted, and the coldness on their faces became even thicker. Flame Dragon City's teleportation formation? Lei Zhun came to die again? Later on, would Dripping Spring and Duan Fei also come to die? Li Tao thought to himself that it was perfect. Previously, he forced him not to make a move. Now he could end it all at once. What made everyone incomparably shocked was that when the teleportation formation's light faded, a tall and sturdy man walked out. Under the bamboo hat, his face was covered with a full beard, making him look incomparably rough. He gripped the hilt of an enormous sword at his waist with one hand. His black hair fluttered, making people feel a wild aura. "Who are you? Quickly retreat, or else you will be killed without mercy." Life Chasing Heaven bellowed, somewhat surprised. There was actually someone who dared to teleport to Soul-Devouring City, and it was from Flame Dragon City? The tall and sturdy man grinned, as if he could not see the murderous atmosphere in the city. He said leisurely, I'm called Daddy Xiong Tu Shun. I entered the wrong teleportation formation. Sorry, you guys continue? Daddy Xiong Tu Shun? There's such a strange surname and name? A trace of doubt flashed across Life, Chasing Heaven's eyes as he muttered. But seeing that the tall and sturdy man wanted to leave, he did not care about him and only muttered this strange name. Courting death. At the side, Shinta Wuji's eyes flashed with a trace of anger. Just now, when Emperor Yu rejected him several times, he did not show such anger. Then, Li Tao also reacted, and Life Chasing Heaven also reacted after muttering a few times. The trio's expression changed drastically. More than 10,000 soul-devouring army soldiers looked at the tall and sturdy figure in the teleportation formation with some bafflement. Emperor Yu, however, seemed to be deep in thought. After a moment, Emperor Yu laughed loudly. Daddy Xiong Tu Shun? Wasn't it Shinta Xiong's father? Who was Shinta Xiong? The soul-devouring army below did not know, but Emperor Yu knew. He was the current uncrowned king of the divine world. It was rumored that Shinta Wuji and the other two were Shinta Xiong's sons. That person actually said that he was Shinta Xiong's father? Wasn't that Shinta Wuji's grandfather? Who was this person? He actually knew the name of the Star Sovereign and still dared to call himself Shinta Xiong's father? Was he going to defy the heavens? At this moment, Shinta Wuji did not want to know who this person was. He only wanted to tear this person apart. Therefore, he suddenly flew towards the tall and sturdy man. Although Li Tao and the others wanted to know who this person was, they did not have the time to think about it. The trio flew towards Emperor Yu with lightning speed. The situation today was very strange. They did not want any more accidents to happen. In his rage, Shinta Wuji did not hold back. Powerful spatial energy transformed into a giant palm that slammed towards Yi Qinghan. The mighty man was naturally Yi Qinghan. When he saw Shinto Wuji's giant palm, he heaved a sigh of relief. Shinto Wuji had indeed refined the pseudo-primal chaos divine crystal. His strength was only slightly weaker than before. If it was the Yi Qinghan of the past, it might have been very difficult to kill him. But now it was very easy. He grinned and laughed again without a care in the world. He said, "Actually, for a bastard without a teacher like Shinto Xiong, who has no morals and has no righteousness, if he were my son, I would stab him to death. Shinto Wuji, don't blame me for being ruthless. If you want to blame someone, blame your father's sins." Chapter 1152. Young Master. When Emperor Yu heard this familiar form of address and heard the familiar frivolous tone, an indescribable feeling surged in his mind as he looked at the burly man's actions. This person seemed to have seen him somewhere before, but moments later, Emperor Yu did not have the time to think about these questions. Even Li Tao and the other two, who were flying in mid-air, paused as they looked at the scene behind them in disbelief. The 10,000 soldiers of the Soul Devourer army were even more dumbfounded. An incomparably terrifying aura was suddenly released from the burly man's body. Then, 10 spears suddenly emerged from the void. They were like the claws of a giant beast that had suddenly extended in the dark night. Before they were fully revealed, it already made one's heart palpitate. Grade 9. Shinto Wuji's expression suddenly changed, but at this moment, he could only grit his teeth and face it head-on. However, the spears easily pierced through his palm and whistled towards him. He was scared out of his wits. He released all his origin energy to protect his body as he desperately resisted. Bang! The spears pierced through the sky and violently struck his body. A huge force came crashing over, nearly shattering his organs. However, due to the protection of his origin energy, he did not suffer any serious injuries. The divine crystal immediately started to repair his body, and his god power also started to vibrate. At the same time, he barely controlled his spatial power to block the 9 spears behind him. He did not hope to block them, but only hoped that the speed and power would not be so terrifying. Bang! 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 The spears continuously pierced through the sky. Shinto Wuji's body was pushed back step by step. Fresh blood spurted out and filled the sky. His origin energy had also weakened significantly. 8 spears, 9 spears. The last one. Shinto Wuji's bones and organs were all shattered. Fortunately, the divine crystal did not shatter. He gritted his teeth and held on. He silently thought that as long as he could withstand the last God Slayer's spear, he would immediately teleport and send a message to Shinto Xiong. As long as he could escape, this person would definitely die. The last God Slayer's spear leisurely arrived. Its speed and aura were not as domineering as the previous ones. However, Shinto Xiong was incomparably horrified to discover that this God Slayer's spear was different from the previous ones. This was because it emitted a faint origin energy. Bang! Blood sprayed wildly in the air, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. A divine crystal that shone with a rainbow-colored radiance and a spatial ring floated in the air. They were abnormally beautiful and captivating. Silence. The entire square was dead silent. Everyone looked at the blood rain and minced meat falling from the sky, their faces filled with disbelief. Shinto Wuji was dead. It hadn't even been a month since he became the Misty Monarch, and the rumored son of Shinto Xiong had died. Who was this giant man? They actually dared to kill Shinto Xiong's son? Even Lord Icy Snow and Lord Qingshan wouldn't have the guts to kill him. Emperor Yu was filled with doubt. In the next second, his body suddenly trembled, and he was overjoyed. His dark face glowed like a young girl in love who had just seen her lover. He actually became a little charming. Xiaohei, devour them. A black long blade appeared in Yi Qinghan's hand. Then, a specter whizzed out and swept towards Li Tao, chasing life, destroying heaven. Yi Qinghan didn't recognize Li Tao, but he had seen Zhuai Ming a few times in the past. However, since Zhuai Ming had sided with Shinto Xiong, he was an enemy. Since he was an enemy, Then he would kill without mercy. No. Frigid Night's sovereign. Once the slaughter god blade appeared, even a pig would know that it was Yi Qinghan. If it wasn't Yi Qinghan, he wouldn't have the guts to kill Shinto-wuji. Zhui Ming shouted and wanted to express something, but he was swept in by a gust of wind. In an instant, he turned into dust and disappeared. Haha, Emperor Yu, your face is still as black as charcoal. Bastards below, why aren't you bowing when you see this Lord Xiaohei? Xiaohei's image condensed in the sky. Looking at Emperor Yu's red and black face, he laughed happily. Greetings, Frigid Knight Sovereign. Greetings, young Master Xiaohei. Emperor Yu laughed while wiping away his tears. He knelt down on one knee in midair. The 10,000 soul-devouring army soldiers also crawled up with tears in their eyes. They knelt down on one knee and shouted happily. Greetings, Frigid Knight Sovereign. Greetings, young Master Xiaohei. I'll explain in the future. Emperor Yu, store everyone into your spatial divine item. I'll take care of those that can't be stored. We'll leave immediately. Yi Qinghan nodded but didn't say anything. He had to leave the divine world and go to the endless void before Shinto Xiong found out. Emperor Yu also knew that the situation was serious. He quickly waved his hand and stored half of the soul-devouring army. Yi Qinghan stored the rest of the soul-devouring army. Then, the two of them rushed towards the teleportation formation and directly teleported to Flame Dragon City. In Flame Dragon City, Lei Jun, Paragon Li Quan, and Yu Duanfei were anxiously waiting in the plaza. Suddenly, a white light flashed, and Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yu's figures appeared in the teleportation formation. The three of them were overjoyed. All of you, enter my spatial divine item. We'll talk in the future. Yi Qinghan smiled at Paragon Li Quan and stored them into the aerial battle Imperial Palace. He immediately activated the teleportation formation and teleported to Lonyang City. Then he teleported to the southernmost city of Lonyang Prefecture. Bang! The eternal palace in the air above Supreme Island shook. The entire Supreme Island was shocked. Then, a figure suddenly appeared outside of the eternal palace. He had a head full of golden hair, cold eyes, and a face full of anger. He was like a demon god descending. He shouted, Shinto Wuxia, Shinto Wuya, come out now. Wuji is dead. Immediately send a message to investigate the cause of death. Send a message to all war gods and 9th grade monarchs. Search for suspicious people. Hua! The entire Supreme Island was in an uproar. Shinto Wuji was dead? Was the divine world going to change again? However, no one dared to say anything. Countless figures teleported in the sky and started sending messages with solemn faces. In just a moment, the entire divine world was in an uproar. The War God Pavilion was in every city in the divine world. There were tens of billions of war gods everywhere. All the monarchs were alarmed. Shinto Wuji was killed. Shinto Xiong was furious. The entire divine world was in an uproar. In just a short 2 hours, countless messages came. With the high efficiency of the War God Pavilion, they actually found the suspect. Shinto Wuji went to Soul Eater City in the end. During this time, a suspicious man teleported back and forth between Fiery Dragon City and Soul Eater City. All the teleportation information in Ethereal City was clearly recorded. How dare you? What gall? He actually dared to return. How dare you kill my son? I'm going to tear you apart. When he heard that Paragon Li Quan went to Fiery Dragon City, and that you Monarch, Thunder Monarch, and Supremacy Li Quan all disappeared, Shinto Xiong guessed the truth immediately. He roared furiously on the Supreme Island. His voice was so loud that even the experts on the Nine Guardians Island could vaguely hear him. Send a message to Blood Knight Monarch. Stop him. If you can't stop him, I'm going to tear him apart. Get all the monarchs to gather in the void above Soul Emperor Island. Star Monarch roared furiously at the person below. The latest news had come. That person was currently teleporting towards the west of the Blood Knight continent. He immediately determined where that person was going. His body was like a dragon as he teleported towards the southern sky. Quick, quick, quick! Yi Qinghan's speed was like a flickering light. He used his fastest speed to teleport continuously. In just an hour, he had crossed the entire Blood Night Sea. His body changed again, and he teleported to a small city by the sea. Before the martial artist beside the teleportation formation could react, he shot a few black formation stones into his hands. The teleportation light shone brightly. After teleporting a few times to the main city in the west of Blood Night Continent, he felt a strong sense of unease. He decisively did not choose and teleported to the next teleportation formation. He no longer cared about the direction of Soul Emperor Island. His body was like a dragon as he soared into the sky. Thief, you still want to escape after killing someone? As expected, just as he flew into the sky, a furious roar sounded from afar. A huge man covered in fiery red battle armor rushed towards him from afar. Blood Knight Monarch was here. Chapter 1153. Swish, swish. As the sovereign of Bloody Night roared, countless figures shot out from the city within 10,000 miles. Although they weren't as fast as the sovereign of Bloody Night, they were clearly powerful cultivators. Most of them wore the war god robe and had clearly received the message from Supreme Island. Thief, how dare you kill King Wuji? You will die today. Stop right now. You have nowhere to go today. The chief pavilion master is already here. You can't escape. Thief, come down and fight me, the Green Fox war god, for 300 rounds. Countless angry shouts rang out from all directions. All the nearby cities were alarmed. Countless martial artists flew into the air and stared at the sky in astonishment. Their faces were filled with shock. King Wuji? Could it be Shinta Wuji, who had just taken office on the ethereal continent? The legendary star sovereign's favorite son? Who was this person? Someone who could kill Shinta Wuji must be a rank 9? However, the immortal world's rank 9s were all known to the world now. While everyone was shocked, they were guessing who this daring lunatic was. However, thinking of the people in the War God Pavilion saying that the Star Sovereign would be here soon, they stopped guessing and watched the show excitedly. Since this person had been discovered by the Blood Knight Sovereign and the Star Sovereign was here, where could he run to? Blood Knight, tell Shinta Xiong that this is just collecting some interest. When I, Yi Qinghan, return, it will be the day of his death. In the sky, Yi Qinghan sneered at the Blood Knight Sovereign who was chasing after him. He did not panic at all. He channeled his divine power and shouted. His voice was amplified by the divine power and spread for millions of miles. Then he waved his hands, deciding to strike first. If he let the Blood Knight Sovereign's attack get close, the strong tremors in the space would shake the people in the War Emperor Palace out. The Blood Knight Sovereign was only a lower rank 9. If they fought, Yi Futian believed that he could definitely kill him. Moreover, he did not intend to fight him to the death. He just wanted to push him back. That was even easier. The Soul Exterminator was the first to be activated. Following that, countless soul-poison jade sabers rained down from the sky. The last 10 sabers released a terrifying aura and turned into 10 silver dragons that roared downwards. The strength of Yi Qinghan's current spirit was something that even the upper rank 9 Dis had fallen prey to, let alone the Blood Knight Monarch. Of course, Blood Knight Monarch reacted quickly enough. He immediately intercepted the golden soul threads behind him and used his soul to clean them up. It only took an instant for him to clean them up. However, the soul-poisoned jade sabers came from behind, and he could not dodge them. The Blood Knight Monarch blocked a few of them head-on and discovered 10 spears made of spatial energy stabbing towards him with destructive power. He was frightened out of his wits and immediately used his source energy to protect himself as he fled in terror. Boom! 10 Godslayer's spears whizzed over and blasted the Bloody Knight Monarch's body. Terrifying energy exploded and pressed down on the warriors who were chasing him and the warriors in the sky above the city. The Bloody Knight Monarch was blasted into the ground, creating a bottomless pit. Monarch, Sovereign. Once the terrifying pressure was gone, countless powerhouses immediately flew into the pit and hurriedly dug out the Blood Knight Monarch, who was on his last breath. Seeing that the Blood Knight Monarch's source energy was almost gone, and that all his bones, blood vessels, and internal organs were shattered, they could not help but look at each other in shock. Yi Qinghan, frigid night monarch. He had returned. He had returned for revenge. He had returned to kill. Everyone looked at the figure in the sky, which became smaller and smaller until it completely disappeared. They could not help but have incomparably complicated expressions. The name Yi Qinghan had once shaken the entire divine world. The #1 young master of the misty continent, the #1 freak of the divine world, the #1 genius of the divine world, the person who unlocked the seal of sealed God Valley, the person who entered the 8th floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion, comprehended the eternal profound mystery of space that no one had ever comprehended before, and broke through to the 9th grade in 100 years. Yi Qinghan had too many halos on his head and too many legendary stories. The women by his side were too enviable. Although thousands of years had passed, the people of the divine world still found it difficult to forget him. But now he had suddenly returned. It was fine that he had returned, but he had actually killed Shinta Xiong's son? Moreover, he had severely injured the Blood Knight monarch in one move. How many years had it been? His strength had actually shot up again? In the end, when everyone thought of Yi Qinghan's peerless talent, it was normal for him to have such a huge improvement. They could only sigh. The next time Yi Qinghan, return, it will be the day of his death. Yi Qinghan's cold shout seemed to reverberate in everyone's ears. No one felt that he was making empty promises. Instead, countless people had an inexplicable confidence in him. The sky of the divine world might be surnamed Shintu or Yi in the future. Swish. Yi Qinghan, I will tear you apart. Just as everyone was sighing, an imposing figure suddenly appeared in the sky. His golden hair danced in the wind, and his anger and killing intent soared to the sky. Even the people in the city below felt their hearts palpitate. Qingshan, Bingxue, hurry up and come over here. Follow me to the endless void and tear this bastard apart. Star Sovereign roared angrily again, which made the eardrums of the people in the city hurt. Then they saw the figure of Star Sovereign become smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared in the sky. Not long after, the teleportation array in the city lit up, and a demonic godlike man and a breathtakingly beautiful woman that could freeze one's blood appeared in the teleportation array. Before the light of the teleportation formation faded, the two shot up into the sky. Finally, they became a bright dot again and disappeared from everyone's sight. The endless void. Countless martial artists felt the same, and their hearts were racing. The endless void was a place that even a level 9 expert did not dare to enter. 4 pinnacle powerhouses were actually going to start a life and death chase in the endless void. How exciting would that be? In fact, the few people involved did not have too much of their blood boiling. After Yi Qinghan exited the endless void from the weak point of the divine world, he used the rough memories in his mind, surrounded by the origin energy, and flew towards the left. Not long after, a figure appeared at the place where Yi Qinghan came out from. Similarly, the origin energy surrounded him, and the power of space spread out. His eyes lit up, and his god power increased as he shouted, Yi Qinghan, you will definitely die today. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He didn't expect Star Sovereign to arrive so quickly. After calculating the distance between them, he calmed down slightly. His god power shook, and his speed increased as he started to escape with all his might. Wang. Not long after, Qingshan and Ice Queen's figures appeared in the void. They could no longer detect Yi Qinghan's figure, and could only detect Star Sovereign's back. The two of them gritted their teeth, and their speed increased as they followed. The fact that Yi Qinghan could return and kill Shinta Wuji secretly shocked the two of them. But it was just a slight shock. If Yi Qinghan had reached level 9 Supreme Martial Artist, they might have helped to kill Shinta Xiong. But at this moment, the two of them were forced to chase after Yi Qinghan. Shinta Xiong was so furious that if they didn't attack, Shinta Xiong would attack them. You dare to chase me in the endless void? I will trick you to death. Yi Qinghan's speed reached the limit. He felt that Star Sovereign was closing the distance between them. Although he could only close the distance bit by bit, He would catch up with him sooner or later. But Yi Qinghan wasn't afraid at all. If he was in the divine world, he would definitely die. But in the endless void, he... Chapter 1154. The divine world was bustling with activity. Countless messages were flying in the air. The news of Yi Qinghan's return spread across the entire divine world in just a few moments. Shinta Wuji was killed, Li Tao was killed, the three supremacies of Ethereal City were killed, and the Blood Knight Sovereign was severely injured in one move. The uncrowned king of the divine world, Star Sovereign, was enraged. Ice Queen and Lord Qingshan chased him out of the endless void. Any one of these events could shake the divine world. In the Blood Sea City in the west of the Blood Knight continent, the sovereigns gathered again, waiting for the return of the three. The Blood Knight Sovereign's injuries were mostly healed, but his face looked worse than if his father had died. The South Mountain Sovereign's eyes were filled with coldness. He looked up to the sky from time to time, waiting for the Star Sovereign to bring back Yi Qinghan's head. The Apocalypse Sovereign Mo Shanghuang, the Divine Grace Sovereign Lady Yanran, and the Hidden Sovereign revealed a bitter smile. Yi Qinghan's strength had soared so much in a few thousand years, and he even injured the Blood Knight Sovereign in one move. His future would be limitless, and he might even be able to kill his way back to the divine world and kill Shinta Xiong. However, even if Yi Qinghan became the master of the divine world in the future, he might not kill them, but he definitely wouldn't like them. The sovereigns all had complicated expressions, each with their own thoughts. The atmosphere in the sky above the Blood Sea City was extremely heavy. Countless experts were flocking over, either to watch the show or to show their loyalty. Today was the busiest day in the history of the Blood Sea City. Wong. The teleportation formation below lit up again, and four figures appeared. 3 men and 1 woman. The leader was a man with the strength of a supremacy. His black hair draped over his shoulders, and he had a burly body. His every movement gave off an intimidating aura. Of the 2 men next to him, one had a large sword on his back, the other had a sinister look in his eyes, and the other was a woman who was leaning against the black-haired man. Her charming appearance caused the hearts of the people nearby to palpitate. Oh, why are there so many people in the Blood Sea City? And there are so many experts in the sky, and such terrifying aura. Could they be Grade 9 sovereigns? The black-haired man's expression became serious as he led the 3 of them out of the teleportation portal. They went to a restaurant in the corner of the square, where they handed a few godstones to the waiter and sent a voice transmission to ask about the situation. Brother Yi, what happened? The woman next to her saw the black-haired man's expression constantly changing. After the waiter left, she hastily released her god domain and asked in a low voice. The 2 men next to her also looked at her in confusion. Go! The black-haired man didn't say anything. He tossed out a divine stone and then led the 3 confused people into the teleportation formation. They were teleported to a small city nearby, where they booked the most luxurious room. After having the 3 of them wait inside, the black-haired man left. A few hours later, the man came back again. He opened the room's shield and released his god domain. Only then did he say, in a low voice, I'm afraid we can't go to Flame Dragon City anymore. Night Emperor, why are you doing this? The man with the giant sword on his back asked in surprise. The man with cold eyes said, Could it be that the clansmen guarding the island lied to us? That there is no such person as Yi Qinghan? Like I said, how could someone achieve rank 9 within 100 years? And it just so happens that he's a descendant of our fire dragon continent. Don't say anything. Let Brother Yi finish first. The charming woman said, Yi Qinghan does exist, and he is indeed my descendant. And he is indeed a rank 9, the number 1 genius in the divinity, the one and only. The eyes of the black-haired man called Night Emperor flashed with pride as he said with absolute certainty. Then his eyes dimmed, and he said in a low voice, We have been in the beast deity arcane land for thousands of years, and the divinity has undergone earth-shaking changes. I just went out to find out everything. Do you know why there were so many sovereigns in the sky above Blood Sea City? The 3 of them heard the certainty in the Night Emperor's tone, and they were shocked. The charming woman hurriedly asked, "Why?" "Because today, Yi Qinghan killed the son of the Star Sovereign, Sovereign Shintawuji, and severely injured the Blood Knight Sovereign. Now, he is being chased by the strongest Star Sovereign and two other powerful sovereigns in the divinity into the endless void." Ah! The expressions of the three of them changed drastically, and their eyes widened in disbelief. To them, a venerable was a figure that they could look up to. At this moment, one of their juniors not only became a rank 9, but also killed a rank 9 and was being chased by the strongest of the three rank 9. This feeling was like a story from the Arabian Nights. Then, the Night Emperor quickly told the three of the things that had happened over the years. The three of them felt like they were listening to a book from the heavens, and they were so shocked that they could not speak. After a long time, the charming woman came back to her senses. She frowned and asked, "Brother Knight, what should we do now?" "Wait." The Night Emperor was silent for a moment, and then said, "Let's wait for the Star Sovereign to return first. If the Star Sovereign cannot kill Yi Qinghan this time, we will immediately enter the Beast Deity Arcane Land and find a way to meet the Beast Deity of this generation. I think he will definitely come out after hearing about Yi Qinghan. After all, Yi Qinghan is also his descendant." The three of them nodded, and the light in their eyes became brighter and brighter. In the boundless void, four figures, one in front and one behind, shone with the power of the source, like four meteors, piercing through the sky. "Yi Qinghan, you can't escape." Shinta Xiong's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and his aura was monstrous. His golden hair danced in the wind, and he was insufferably arrogant. "Ha, Shinta old dog, if you're not afraid of death, follow me." Yi Qinghan turned around and laughed mischievously. He shouted loudly and activated his demonic voice, causing his voice to appear somewhat bewitching. At the same time, his eyes flashed with a demonic light as he activated his soul extermination. Looking at Yi Qinghan's confident smile, Shinta Xiong's heart trembled. Yi Qinghan flew alone in the void and was not immediately picked up by the Soul Emperor Pavilion. This made Shinta Xiong a little hesitant. At this moment, he did not see the Soul Emperor Pavilion, which made him even more vigilant. Could it be an ambush? Just when he was under the influence of Yi Qinghan's demonic voice, and couldn't help but think that it was a trap, suddenly, billions of golden threads crazily surged towards his soul ocean. Shinta Xiong was shocked and thought that he was ambushed. He quickly waved his hands, and a huge and terrifying golden sword appeared beside him, ready to kill any enemy that appeared. However, the enemy did not appear, but Shinta Xiong realized that some golden soul threads had penetrated into his soul ocean. He was shocked and activated his soul power to defend against the golden soul threads that crazily attacked him. When he completely cleared the golden soul threads in his mind, he realized that the distance between him and Yi Qinghan was pulled further apart. He knew that he was tricked, and he was furious. He quickly chased after Yi Qinghan again. The Ice Queen and Qing Shan, who were at the back, had also gotten closer to the Star Monarch in these 2 seconds. When they saw that even a 9th-grade sovereign, Shinta Xiong, was ambushed by Yi Qinghan, they felt a chill down their spines. This kid was only 3,000 years old, and he was already so sick. What would happen if he was a few 100,000 years old, or a few million years old? The two of them subconsciously slowed down their flying speed, but Shinta Xiong suddenly turned around and looked at them coldly. The two of them laughed bitterly, and were forced to increase their speed again to chase after him. Chapter 1155. Come on, come on. Let's see if you or I will die in this endless space. Yi Qinghan laughed coldly. What was there in the endless space? Black hole, space whirlpool, and endless space broken blade current. Yi Qinghan was really quick. Under the use of space power, so close, yet so far was terrifyingly fast. He was definitely comparable to a grade 9 expert. If Shinta Xiong wanted to catch up to him, he would need a few days. Moreover, this was under the premise that Yi Qinghan didn't need to destroy his soul to attack him. His soul was so strong that the distance that his consciousness could spread was really sick, He could easily disturb Star-Lord. He is coming. Yi Qinghan's pupils constricted, and he gave a dark smile. He turned to the left and flew. The Star Sovereign behind didn't hesitate to follow him and fly to the left. Qing Shan and Ice Queen were helpless and flew to the left. Pu Piu. Not long later, a bright golden light flew over like a meteor shower. It was so quick and covered such a wide area that the few of them didn't have time to dodge. Scoff. This idiot is actually so unlucky. I don't need to attack. After a few space-broken blades, there will be no trace of his corpse. Star-Lord saw the space-broken blade current sweeping over. Not only was he not afraid, but he was also really happy. As a grade 9 supreme martial artist, he had lived for millions of years. Although he didn't have much source energy in his body, he could still hold on for a period of time. How many years had it been since Yi Qinghan reached grade 9? How much source energy could he have to consume? Qing Shan and Ice Queen cried out bitterly. Star-Lord was really strong and didn't fear flying in the endless space. However, they didn't have such confidence. The space-broken blade current landed on their bodies and gave out metal clanking sounds. It also took away some of their source energy. The two of them felt their hearts hurt. Continue. Yi Qinghan's consciousness reached behind him. Star-Lord was looking at him like he was an idiot. He laughed. In the future, he would know who was the idiot. Yi Qinghan extended his spiritual sense to the limit as he probed the space-shattering saber stream. What did he rely on the most in the endless void? It was a sea of origin energy. The amount of origin energy in his new soul space was frightening. It was at least 10 times more than the Star Monarch's. Moreover, his origin energy was constantly increasing as time passed. Competing in terms of energy consumption was truly a joke. Yi Qinghan suddenly turned around and flew to the right. Although the Star Monarch was extremely puzzled, he could not guess anything and continued to chase after him. After half an hour, the four of them once again suffered the baptism of the spatial blade shattering current. Shinta Xiong was a little puzzled. Was this kid really an idiot? Why did he deliberately run into the space blade shattering current? Qing Shan, Ice Queen attack. A day later, the distance between Yi Qinghan and the Star Monarch was a little closer. Yi Qinghan suddenly turned around and shouted loudly. The 10 god massacring spears on his body whizzed forward. Accompanying the god massacring spears were the soul-poisoned jade knives that filled the sky. Finally, when Shinta Xiong's expression changed, the soul exterminator was activated once again. Shinta Xiong had always been a suspicious person. He had ambushed the Battle Emperor and had done many shameful things. He didn't really trust the people around him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bestowed the pseudo-primal chaos divine crystal to his own son instead of Li Tao and the others. He was really wary of Qing Shan and Ice Queen. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's heaven demon voice hollered, and he fell for it once more. In the end, he noticed that Qing Shan and Ice Queen were far behind. Their faces were filled with shock. When he came back to his senses, the God Slayer spears and the soul-poisoned jade blades were here. In the end, it was still the soul golden threads that he hated that struck his soul. He wasn't afraid of the God Slayer's spear or the soul-poisoned jade knife, but the soul exterminator's attacks were all pervasive. He was distracted just now, and by the time he finished cleaning up, Yi Qinghan had once again widened the distance between them. Despicable and shameless bastard. I will rip you to shreds. Shinta Xiong hollered in rage. Since he became Battle Emperor's disciple, when had he suffered such humiliation? Yi Qinghan was a junior who cultivated for just a few thousand years. Not only did he kill his favorite son, but he was also teasing him time and time again. He could take it, but he couldn't. He swore that if he didn't rip Yi Qinghan to shreds, he wouldn't return to the God world. Ice Queen and Qing Shan's faces turned dark and sunken. Their speed was similar to Yi Qinghan, and they couldn't catch up at all. Were they going to chase him all the way? What if they couldn't return? Pu Piu. Yi Qinghan brought the three of them. Wherever there was a space blade shattering current, they would head there. They were having a lot of fun. 5 days later, Qing Shan and Ice Queen couldn't take it anymore. During these few days, Yi Qinghan had brought them through at least hundreds of space blade-shattering currents. Yi Qinghan would shout, "Lord Devour, attack! Kid, attack!" And even the God Emperor Supreme's name was called out. Under the combination of soul destruction and sky demon voice, Star Sovereign became even more suspicious and fell for it time and time again. One couldn't blame Star Sovereign for not being suspicious. That was because, normally speaking, Yi Qinghan was someone who had cultivated for just a few thousand years, so his source energy should be really low. Logically speaking, after being baptized by hundreds of space blade-shattering currents, he should have been ripped to shreds. However, he was jumping around. Things that were abnormal were definitely demonic. "Sir, we can't take it anymore. If we continue, the space blade-shattering currents will rip us to shreds." Qing Shan gritted his teeth and sent a message over. If it was a normal, endless space journey, maybe they could last for a few months to half a year. However, Yi Qinghan would go wherever there was a space-shattering blade current. Shen Xiong waved his hands and didn't force the two of them. Qing Shan and Ice Queen heaved a sigh of relief. They looked at the blurry back view of Yi Qinghan before turning around and flying back. If they didn't go faster and were unlucky when they returned, they would face hundreds of space blade-shattering currents. Then they would be dead. Star Sovereign gritted his teeth and chased once more. Yi Qinghan's matter had caused such a huge commotion in the God world, so it had definitely spread out. If he didn't kill Yi Qinghan, it would be a huge blow to his reputation. Most importantly, he saw that the source energy on Yi Qinghan's body was really thin, like he couldn't take it anymore. However, a few days later, Shen Xiong realized that he was tricked once more. The source energy on this kid's body was getting thinner and thinner, but damn it, it just didn't shatter. He was like an old man who was about to die, but he was still breathing and didn't die for a few years. Although his heart was burning, Shen Xiong had to accept an extremely cruel fact. In the endless space, he couldn't kill Yi Qinghan at all. His weird sky demon voice and soul destruction attacks were always able to pull apart the distance between them. Moreover, his source energy seemed like it could never be used up. If he continued to chase, the one who would die would definitely be him. Ayo! Under Shen Xiong's rage, the power of space transformed into a huge golden sword, heavily chopping down at a material plane in the distance. The terrifying energy and the source energy on the surface of the material plane violently collided, producing a loud sound that shook the heavens and the earth, causing the entire material plane to tremble. Then, Shen Xiong looked at the back view in front of him viciously before turning around and walking back. "Shen, old dog, thank you for giving me a ride. Go back and wash your neck clean. I will come back in a few days to take your dog head. Goodbye." After flying for a few steps, Yi Qinghan's frivolous words could be heard. Shen Xiong's body trembled, his throat felt hot, and he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Chapter 1156. Ha! So satisfying, so painful. In a small city called Bloodwater beside Blood Sea City, Night Emperor laughed as he dashed into a room upstairs. The three inside were overjoyed. The charming woman opened the barrier and asked, "What's wrong, Brother Knight? Good news?" Yi Huang laughed loudly and said, "How satisfying." The Wind Monarch, the Snow Marshal, and the Moon Empress, the three strongest sovereigns in the divine world, had returned with cold expressions. The strongest Star Sovereign had even sent the Blood Knight Sovereign flying with a slap. Yi Qinghan actually escaped from the three strongest sovereigns of the divine world. Wind Monarch, Snow Marshal, and Moon Queen were in disbelief. According to Night Emperor, Yi Qinghan had only cultivated for a few thousand years. Night Emperor had cultivated for less than 10,000 years and reached Venerable Realm. The three thought that Night Emperor was a peerless genius. Even if he wasn't number one in the divine world, he was at least number 2 or 3. But now, compared to his descendants, they were worlds apart. The three were slightly puzzled. Could geniuses be hereditary? Let's go. We'll leave immediately and enter the Beast God's secret realm again. This time, I must think of a way to invite the Beast God to come out. In the future, When Yi Qinghan kills his way back to the divine world, it will be a great help. Yi Huang's entire person was brimming with an ecstatic aura. In the past, in order to save the Fire Dragon continent, the few of them had come to the divine realm to fight. After that, they had been hunted down by the Netherworld race. They had been forced to flee the misty continent and wandered the Star Sea. After many encounters, Flower Monarch and some seniors of the Flame Dragon continent died. Finally, they settled at Flame Dragon Island and slowly gathered strength for revenge. Because they received news of the Beast God's secret realm by chance, they immediately went to look for it. After many difficulties, they almost died. After entering the Beast God's secret realm, they didn't expect the Beast God to seal their clansmen, forbidding them to leave the divine world. The four were helpless and cultivated in the Beast God's secret realm for a period. In the end, the most talented Knight Emperor lived up to expectations and broke through to Venerable Realm. The four of them were worried about their clansmen and the people of the Flame Dragon continent. He was no longer in the mood to cultivate in the Beast God Arcane realm. He hurriedly came out and prepared to fight to the death with the Netherworld clan and their backer, the Evil Moon Venerable. He would rather die than save the Flame Dragon continent. Unexpectedly, when they returned to the Flaming Dragon Island, there were only a few people left to guard the island. They were told a somewhat absurd matter. An exceptional genius had appeared in the Flame Dragon continent. Not only had he saved the Flame Dragon continent, he had also killed young Master Tu Xie and Venerable Xieyu. He had also driven the Netherworld race out of the Misty continent. Moreover, he had even built a city in the divine world and become a sovereign. He had even become sworn brothers with the Misty Monarch, Jita. The four figures dashed towards the teleportation array and went to the Blood Sea City. Then, without stopping, they went to the Star Sea and disappeared into the vast world. The divine world was in an uproar. After Qing Shan and Ice Queen returned, they didn't hide anything and directly said that they couldn't kill Yi Qinghan. They also vaguely said that Shinta Xiong couldn't either. Shinta Xiong sent the Blood Knight Sovereign flying with a slap, proving that they weren't lying. The three strongest experts of the divine world chased after Yi Qinghan, but in the end, they returned in failure. Mo Shanghuang, Sovereign Yanran, Sovereign Hidden World, and the three of them were filled with regret. Wind Moon Sovereign and Ice Queen Qing Shan didn't care, but South Mountain Sovereign and Blood Knight Sovereign were filled with fear. The divine world martial artists sighed and were secretly shocked. This young master had another nickname, the human-shaped demon. He had only cultivated for a few thousand years. If he returned in a few 100,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years, would the divine world be in a bloodbath? Because of Yi Qinghan's return, the sky of the divine world became slightly oppressive. The Starry Sea recently became incomparably turbulent. Under the towering waves, the faint smell of blood enveloped the entire Starry Sea. Yi Qinghan wasn't as excited as people thought he would be. Instead, he was a little depressed. He was lost. It wasn't scary to get lost in other places, but to get lost in the endless void, that would be damn it. After being chased by Shinta Xiong for more than 10 days, he couldn't remember how far he had flown. Moreover, when Lord Devour brought him to the reincarnation secret realm, he didn't pay attention to the road. Moreover, in the endless void, there was no road. The terrain around was similar. Space vortexes could be seen everywhere, and material planes of different sizes were everywhere. They were like moons hanging in the void. Unless he had heaven-defying luck, like a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse, he would never find the reincarnation secret realm with 4 space vortexes. The Wanderer misses you, dear mother. The Wanderer's footsteps have traveled to the ends of the earth, but there's no home. The winter wind blows my tears with the snowflakes. Yi Qinghan softly recited a Wanderer's song from his previous life. He felt like a child who had a home but couldn't return. He had wandered in the endless void for half a year, but he hadn't found the familiar terrain in his memory. Yi Qinghan gazed at the countless material planes around him. The origin energy outside was emitting a faint radiance. Feeling the cold and desolate aura in the void, Yi Qinghan felt as though he was a lone meteor drifting through the void. The wind blew over the heaven and earth. After Ronghua's death, he descended to the world and climbed the 9-layered pagoda, watching the meteors for the whole night. Although the meteors were beautiful, who knew the loneliness in their hearts? I can't go on like this. If I continue like this, I'll consume too much of the origin power. If I search blindly, I might not be able to find it even after I've used up all my origin power. I can only go to a material plane first. After a few days, Yi Qinghan couldn't stand it anymore. He dashed into a material plane next to him. As soon as he entered, he immediately hid. His divine sense probed and didn't find any special experts. It was just an ordinary material plane. Yi Qinghan directly entered the War Emperor Palace. Little Han, boss, big brother Han Yi. Yi Qinghan entered the small room where the secret books were stored. Only Venerable Li Quan, the Thunder Emperor, Pandora, and the others lived here. As soon as Yi Qinghan appeared, everyone was immediately overjoyed. They stood up and looked at him with shining eyes. It's fine. I've already shaken off Xiong and the others. I'm now in a material plane. Yi Qinghan pulled Pandora's hand and comforted her, smiling relaxedly. The few of them sighed and looked at Yi Qinghan in a new light. They were all in high spirits, but after a moment, Yi Qinghan said that he was lost, and the few of them were stunned. Emperor Yu, do you know the way to the secret realm of reincarnations? Yi Qinghan placed his last hope on Emperor Yu. In the past, Emperor Yu had traveled with Lord Devour. Perhaps he had also gone to the secret realm of reincarnation. No, I haven't been to the secret realm of reincarnation. I've only heard about it from Big Sister. Emperor Yu shook his head. Everyone was sad. In this endless void, if one didn't know the direction, how could it be easy to find the secret realm of reincarnation? However, after a while, Emperor Yu's eyes suddenly brightened. He laughed heartily. Although I don't know the location of the secret realm of reincarnation, I know the location of a place. In the past, I went there with Big Sister Soul Emperor. And? Where? Yi Qinghan's spirit was shaken. He hurriedly asked. Emperor Yu grinned and said, The Flame Dragon Plain. The Flame Dragon Continent? Venerable Li Quan didn't understand, but Yi Qinghan and Xiao Hei's eyes suddenly brightened. They laughed heartily. As long as they could return to the Flame Dragon Continent, they could find the secret realm of reincarnation. This was because there was a special rabbit in the dark castle of the Flame Dragon Continent, Lord Devour's main body. Chapter 1157. The Flame Dragon Continent was peaceful. Yi Qinghan's rise had established his position as the overlord of the Tsang City continent. The experts of the Yi family were as many as the clouds. The Flame Dragon Island's experts had returned to the Flame Dragon Continent. The House of Aries' Long, Feng, Hua, and Yu families had risen because of their relationship with Yi Qinghan. The number of experts in the House of Aries could be compared to a mid-level family in the God world. The Barbarian God Manor and the Demon God Manor were scared of them. Why would they dare to act rashly? On the surface, the continent looked incomparably peaceful. People lived in peace and contentment. The disciples of the continent loved martial arts. They followed Yi Qinghan's example and cultivated diligently. The place was full of vigor and vitality. However, in the holy land of the continent, the Yi family's castle didn't have the cheerful atmosphere that the people of the continent had imagined. Quite the contrary, it was heavy and depressing. Under Lord Devour's order, everybody was forced to return to the Flame Dragon Continent from the Flame Dragon City. Although Yi Tianlong and Yi Luyun didn't know what had happened, they were sure that something big had happened. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been sent back. The most important thing was that besides Lord Devour's order, asking them to stay in the Flame Dragon Continent, there was no other news. Yi Qinghan hadn't come back, either. At that time, Yi Qinghan was the frigid night sovereign. In Yi Tianlong's group's eyes, he was the peak existence of the God world. But now something so strange had happened. There was no reason to explain it. They were sure that something big had happened. something that Lord Devour and Yi Qinghan couldn't deal with. Several thousand years of worry and consideration had made the atmosphere above the Yi family's castle heavier and heavier. Swish, swish. Today, that Song City was very lively. The city was full of people on the streets. The outside of the Yi family's castle was decorated with lanterns and colorful ribbons. Apparently, a happy event was about to happen. Young Master Yi Longxiang and young Lady Long Fian got married today. It's the biggest event in 100 years. Isn't that so? Young Master Yi Longxiang is the #1 genius after the Frost Emperor. He's only 16 this year, but he's already broken through to the deity realm. Young Master Yi Sahan also reached the deity realm at the age of 20, right? Miss Long Fian isn't bad either. She's the continent's #1 beauty, and she's only 15 years old, but she's already reached the Emperor realm. The Long family has also produced a peerless genius, comparable to Miss Long Sinan from back then. What a match made in heaven. Today, young Master Yi Longxiang and Miss Long Fian will get drunk. Song City was filled with discussions about Yi Longxiang and Long Fian. The citizens of the city were sincerely happy for the two of them. Of course, there were also people who were envious and jealous, but they didn't dare to show it. Because of the wedding of the peerless genius of the younger generation, the atmosphere in the castle was no longer as gloomy. Even the ancestor, Yi Tianlong, came out of the back mountain to sincerely bless the couple. Although Yi Chong didn't continue to be the clan leader of the Yi family, today's wedding was his direct descendant, so he made an exception and came out to welcome the guests. At this moment, he was laughing and chatting with Feng Zi, who was still carrying a huge sword on his back. Clan leader Feng Zi, please come in. The Flowers and Plants clan leader is already waiting for you inside. He said he's going to get drunk today. Feng Zi stroked his hair and laughed heroically. Ha! That Flowers and Plants transvestite wants to get me drunk? It's not that I, Feng Zi, am bragging, but when it comes to drinking, I'm not convinced by anyone except the Frost Emperor. Ha! Wrong. Other than submitting to the Frost Emperor, you're also leaning on the wall. A pleasant female voice interrupted from the side. It was a woman, and her age couldn't be seen. Her figure and appearance were both above average, especially the heroic spirit on her face, which made her have a unique temperament. Feng Zi turned to look and revealed a teasing smile. He leaned over and said quietly, Miss Sinan, can you not be sarcastic to me? Miss Sinan, it's not that I'm scolding you, but it's been a few thousand years. More than 10 generations of your descendants have already married, but you're still... lunatic. Are you looking for a beating? Do you believe that I won't cripple all your limbs with that little strength of yours? Long Sanan's expression darkened when she heard this. Divine power burst forth from her body, and she was about to attack. Yi Chong, who was at the side, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He hurriedly pulled the two of them back and comforted them before inviting everyone in. The Yi family castle was filled with distinguished guests, and there weren't many seats. Of course, those who weren't at the peak of the continent didn't have the right to sit in every seat. Yi Tianlong and Yi Luyan sat at the head of the table. The various old ancestors of the Flame Dragon Island took their seats one after another. There were many beautiful ladies of the Yu family present, which made the atmosphere incomparably intense. When a pair of newlyweds came out, the atmosphere reached its peak. Yi Longxiang was handsome and talented, while Long Fian was worthy of being called the #1 beauty of the continent's young generation. She was comparable to Yu Qingqing back then. The two of them clearly adored each other, and their faces were filled with affection. The pair of newlyweds first started to serve tea to the few old ancestors. However, when it was Yi Liyun's turn, he suddenly raised his eyebrows, and the teacup in his hand fell to the ground. He didn't pay attention to it, and instead shot up into the sky with an ecstatic expression. The people present were all experts of the continent. After being stunned for a moment, they also realized the situation. They were all overjoyed, and their divine power vibrated as they shot up into the sky. The crowd was in an uproar as they all flew up into the sky. A green figure stood proudly in the sky, and his face was filled with sorrow. Returning to the Flame Dragon continent once again, Yi Qinghan felt as if it was a lifetime ago. He felt as if he was still in the Holy Continent in another plane last night. But today he had returned to the Flame Dragon continent that he had been dreaming about. He's back. Countless figures shot up from below, and all of them were trembling slightly. Those who knew Yi Qinghan were ecstatic, and those who didn't know Yi Qinghan could guess his identity from their expressions. Long Sinan was the most excited. Looking at the familiar figure, the man in her dreams, her tears fell silently, sprinkling over Tsang City below. Yi Longxiang and Long Fian were even more ecstatic. Today was their big day, and the legendary figure of the Yi family had suddenly returned. Little Han, Cold Emperor, Young Master Han, Monarch. Countless shouts resounded. At this moment, thousands of years of worry, thousands of years of waiting, all turned into tears, raining down on Tsang City. Buzz! Yi Qinghan's eyes were also sparkling as he smiled and nodded. At this moment, there was a ripple in space, and a rabbit with eyes as white as snow and rubies suddenly appeared in the sky. Its eyes were filled with disbelief. Sir, I'm back. Yi Qinghan didn't kneel to Yi Tianlong or Yi Qingniu. Quite strangely, he kneeled to this rabbit. He couldn't hold back his tears anymore, rolling down his face. The snow-white rabbit's body shuddered, and its body transformed. A red figure appeared in the air. He wore a familiar red robe and had a delicate and pretty face. However, that cold and indifferent expression that never changed had disappeared, and in its place was a face filled with excitement. His lips trembled, and after a long while, he finally said, Little Han, is that you? Lord Devour. Yi Tianlong and the others finally got it. They hurried to Cao to Lord Devour to greet him. No one had thought that the guardian beast of the Flame Dragon continent was Lord Devour. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Get up! Get up! Lord Devour tried to hold back the tears in his eyes, waving his hands unceasingly. His face was glowing as if he was hundreds of thousands of years younger. She turned her head, bewildered. Then, she remembered something, asking hurriedly, Xiaohe, where's Xiaohe? Little Han, has Xiaohe evolved? Yi Qinghan swung his hand, and the slaughter god's saber appeared. Xiaohe's figure roared as he screamed, Little Ant, we're back. We're back. Big sister, little you missed you so much. Lord Devour saw Xiaohe's appearance, and saw Yi Qinghan teleporting Emperor Yu, Venerable Li Quan, and the others. His face was so happy, his bright eyes gazing at Yi Qinghan, nodding continually. I knew it. I knew little Han would come back. You're always a man who can create miracles. I'm proud of you. Chapter 1158. Reincarnation, Secret Territory. A fiery red figure suddenly dashed out of a courtyard in a frenzy, and stood in the air above the courtyard. Like a crazy person, she shouted, Everyone come out, ha, come out, little Han, he's back, little Han is back. Swish, 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 swish. So many figures soared up into the sky, their sole consciousness scanning the reincarnation's secret territory. Yu Qingcheng, Li Shui, Fireworks, and Yao Ji were thrilled. However, when their sole consciousness scanned the reincarnation's secret territory, they didn't find Yi Qinghan. Their faces darkened, and many pairs of hopeful eyes gazed at Lord Devour. Jita was a little worried. Did Lord Devour lose his mind because he missed little Han so much? Everybody follow me? Sure, you stay here. Yao Ji, take us to the Soul Emperor Pavilion. We're going to pick up little Han. Lord Devour didn't explain, but turned to Yao Ji. Everybody's eyes brightened. Lord Devour looked normal. It meant Yi Qinghan was back. Mom, Dad, and Big Uncle are back. Is it true? Li Shui hugged a cute small beast, talking to Li Shui excitedly. Li Shui looked at Lord Devour anxiously. Before they got the answer, Li Shui, Yu Qingcheng, and Fireworks didn't dare to talk, as they were afraid that it was just a beautiful dream. They're back. They're in the Fire Dragon continent. My real body is there. Why would I lie to you? Lord Devour turned around and smiled, his face calming down a little bit. This time, It was the people behind him who couldn't stay calm. Fireworks, Yi Qingyu, and the others started to cry. Even Yi Yaorao, the most indifferent one, had tears hovering in her eyes, her soft body shivering. Xiao! The Soul Emperor Pavilion soared into the sky, turning into a meteor that rapidly flew into the endless void. Lunatic, we haven't seen each other for several thousand years. You're still as elegant as before. Did Boundless bully you? Inside the Yi family's castle, Yi Qinghan and his fellows settled down in the Yi family's castle after Lord Devour told them that her clone had taken the Soul Emperor Pavilion to this place. All the martial artists in the War Imperial Palace were teleported out. Lei Jun and Yu Dvarch also teleported the Yi family army and the Soul Eater army out. Paragon Li Quan and Duanfei Yu teleported the few immediate family members out from their spatial artifacts. The huge Yi family castle was full of people. It was very lively. At this moment, in Yi Qinghan's chilling heart pavilion, Yi Qinghan was meeting with a few of his old friends, Feng Zi, Hua Xia, and Long Sainan. Yi Qinghan had given Feng Zi and Hua Zi divine crystals to them. Now, they were all god emperors. However, Long Sainan didn't accept it. Instead, she cultivated on her own, reaching the divine general level. It took her several thousand years to reach the divine general level. Most importantly, she was in the fiery dragon continent, where the spirit chi was scarce. Ah, young Master Han, I'm sorry. Feng Zi scratched his head. Being henpecked by his wife was his pain for the rest of his life. Hua Xia sighed. Sigh, I envy young Master Han's life. Although it's hard and dangerous, it's exciting. Lunatic and I are bored to death on this continent. Harumph, young Master Han has risked his life to get the glory he has today. Do you know how much he has suffered and how much blood he has shed? Not everyone who works hard can reach the top. However, those who can reach the top have to pay a lot of sweat and blood. Long Sainan said faintly. Her face was natural as she talked cheerfully. She seemed to have returned to the young lady of the Long family who had fought together with Yi Qinghan in the palace war. Haha, who would want to be a vagabond if they could live a happy and peaceful life? Yi Qinghan let out a long sigh. Ever since he came to this world, his biggest dream was to bring along his beautiful wife and child, living a peaceful and happy life without any worries. It was just that 8 or 9 out of 10 things in the world didn't go according to one's wishes. Yi Qinghan now understood that if he wanted to live the life he wanted, he had to work hard. In this world, there was no one stronger than him. Only then could he truly control his own life and protect the people he wanted to protect. Chatting with his childhood playmates, Yi Qinghan felt extremely warm and comfortable. He couldn't help but think of the fiery dragon continent. He thought of the mansion battle, the bald man with the strange tattoos, the dual-eyed Xue Wuhan, and finally, the barbarian city. He thought of the flower of the barbarian city, his first woman. The Dark Moon refused to be his wife because she stabbed him with a knife back then because she felt guilty. She returned to the barbarian city and expressed that she wanted to be his mistress. The door of the Dark Moonin's backyard was always open for him alone. Yi Qinghan felt slightly guilty. He had returned to the man's city several times, but he hadn't visited her. Was this coquettish lady boss doing well? Yi Qinghan used his divine sense and stood up happily. He excused himself to the three and teleported away. After Yi Qinghan left, Feng Zi and Hua Hua looked at each other and turned to the slightly gloomy Long Sainan. Miss Sainan, why didn't you seize the opportunity? When will your unrequited love end? He has so many wives. I'm just a broken flower. Why should I join in the fun? Besides, I'm used to living in the fire dragon continent. I can't adapt to his life. Long Sainan smiled and shook her head. She stood up and left slowly. She walked to the door alone and looked to the south. She smiled faintly and murmured bitterly, "The furthest distance in the world isn't the endless void." It's not that I can't say I love you. It's that I want to break your heart, but I can only bury it deep in my heart. The Man City. It used to be a small city in the south, but now it was only second to the 6 main cities. There had been no war in the continent for thousands of years. In order to train, warriors could only search for magical beasts. No one dared to enter the dark forest. Hence, the barbaric mountains and the misty swamp became the main places for warriors to train. After thousands of years, the biggest hotel in the Man City, Dark Moon Hotel, had been expanded several times and became the top hotel in the Fire Dragon continent. People came and went, and it was very lively. The lady boss was called Dark Moon. She was a stunner, but her identity was a mystery and her strength was unknown. She was coquettish and enchanting. She was like a rose with thorns, becoming the most beautiful scenery in the Man City. Young masters and powerful warriors who had come to the Man City were all very interested in this rose with thorns. Countless people wanted to keep her in their rooms as their private pets and play with her day and night. However, no one had succeeded after so many years. They could pursue her openly, and the lady boss was very easy to talk to. She would tease them casually and coquettishly, making one's body itch and unable to stop. However, for so many years, no one had been able to enter her backyard. As for those who wanted to do something to her in the dark, they had all disappeared without exception. In the lobby of the hotel, countless pairs of fiery eyes stared at the beautiful lady boss. She walked into the backyard while twisting her plump buttocks and began her daily lunch break. They were all secretly swallowing their saliva. Damn, this coquettish hussy wants to hang us here. I haven't gone back for 10 years because of her. A burly man suddenly slammed the table and shouted angrily. His eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at the tightly shut door of the backyard. What are you shouting for? If you have the guts, why don't you force your way in? Someone next to him shouted in a strange tone. Of course I don't dare. The burly man snorted coldly, but he did not move. Finally, he took out a handful of purple coins and slammed them on the table. However, do you dare? If anyone dares to enter today, I will give him 100,000 purple coins and my inferior grade godly weapon. The hall was dead silent. Not to mention them, even a hedonistic son of the Yi family had tried to force his way in. In the end, he was slapped and taken away immediately. He never appeared in the Man City again. Not to mention that the hedonistic son had refined the divine crystal and his strength had reached the divine king realm. Who would dare to be more confident than the people of the Yi family? I dare. A calm voice came from the door. A harmless-looking man in a green robe walked in leisurely and smiled at the crowd. He then walked straight to the backyard. Under the shocked gazes of the hundreds of warriors in the lobby, the man in the green robe swaggered in. Oh, it's you, little man? Then, the crowd's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The thorny rose sprinted out of the backyard like a fire and hugged the man in the green robe affectionately as they walked into the room in the backyard. Finally, the door to the room was slammed shut with a loud bang. Chapter 1159. Let me tell you, the situation at that time was extremely dangerous. The god of light from another plane was extremely powerful, one level stronger than the boss. The monarch behind him was even more powerful than the god of light. There was a tiger in front and a wolf in the back. The boss made up his mind. When two enemies met on a narrow path, the brave would win. The boss dashed forward with lightning speed and activated the Soul Exterminator. At that critical moment, Lord Xiaohe also made up my mind. Using up all the energy in my soul body, I used up the god of light. In the end, I successfully swallowed the god of light. The superior 9th level experts behind me were scared witless by my Lord Xiaohe, and the boss's power. They ran away in a hurry. Ancestor Xiaohe is too powerful. That's right. If it wasn't for Ancestor Xiaohe, it would have been really dangerous. Ancestor Xiaohe's life is really legendary. You're really my idol. Not at all. I, Lord Xiaohe, still have a lot of legendary stories that I haven't told you. The boss and I have gone through too many ups and downs these years. We've seen through a lot of things. Fame and fortune are like me, like what? Like floating clouds. You juniors must remember, don't be arrogant and impatient. Cultivation is the way of the king. The sky of the divine realm belongs to you juniors. Xiaohe was flying in the air at the back mountain of the Yi family. Below him were the juniors of the Yi family and the Yu family. Yi Longxiang and the others didn't dare to bother Yi Qinghan. Xiao He was the most fun. He didn't put on airs, so he pestered him to tell them the legendary stories of Yi Qinghan these years. Xiao He, you're exaggerating again. Two figures suddenly appeared at the back mountain of the Yi family. One was dressed in a green robe, with a kind and gentle smile on his face. The other was slim, with blue hair and blue eyes. Her appearance was comparable to Long Fian, who stood beside Yi Longxiang, but her temperament was better. Greetings, old ancestor. Greetings, Lord Pandora. Dozens of young elites of the Yi family, who were sitting at the back of the mountain, hurriedly stood up and were about to kneel down to greet Yi Qinghan. Get up, all of you. I don't like these empty formalities. Yi Qinghan smiled warmly and gently waved his hand. Everyone wanted to kneel, but they couldn't. They couldn't help but look at Yi Qinghan with even more worship and fanaticism. Guard against arrogance and rashness. Cultivating properly is the way of the king. Xiao He's words are right. The heavens move vigorously, and we should constantly strive to improve ourselves. If you want to become strong, you must have a strong heart. Yi Qinghan's expression turned serious. Since all the elite disciples were present today, he would give them a few words of advice. Looking at them, Yi Qinghan felt that they were living a blissful life. After he turned 15, he had been fighting against fate. Even now, he still had to work tirelessly. Old ancestors' teachings are right. We will remember them. Yi Longxiang led a group of people and hurriedly bowed. It was a great honor to be able to receive personal guidance from Yi Qinghan. Just as Yi Longxiang and the others were about to ask for more guidance, Yi Qinghan suddenly raised his eyebrows. His body disappeared from the spot and reappeared high up in the sky. Following that, Xiao He also became excited. He turned into a shadow and flew up into the sky. At the same time, countless figures shot out and stood beside Yi Qinghan, looking up at the sky. Whoosh! A black that shot down from the sky and became bigger and bigger in the eyes of the crowd. The last 9-story pagoda stopped in front of Yi Qinghan. Following that, countless figures appeared in the sky. Before they could see them clearly, a fragrant breeze blew over. A few women rushed over like the wind and threw themselves at Yi Qinghan. They hugged each other tightly, and tears rolled down their cheeks. It was a touching scene. Everyone in the mystic realm of reincarnation had come. Li Shui'er looked at the familiar small beast in the sky. He flew over and stretched out his hand, but he only passed through him. She could not help but be stunned on the spot. Shui'er, I'm sorry. Xiao He was originally in the form of a soul-eater beast. At this moment, he hurriedly twisted and turned into his human form. He looked at Li Shui'er apologetically. Yi Qinghan quickly patted his wives beside him. When they heard Xiao He's words, they were not so emotional anymore. This would make Li Shui'er even more sad. It's all right, Xiao He. As long as you are alive, it's fine. It's better than anything else. We are not sad, but we are afraid that you will be sad. Li Shui'er hurriedly wiped away her tears. Her stubborn expression made people's hearts ache. Then, she suddenly thought of something. She turned her head and said to the demon eater, who was stunned in the sky and looking at Xiao He curiously, Yao Yao, come over and greet your father. The demon eater blinked its eyes. Then, its small figure squirmed and turned into a charming young lady. She had yet to cultivate to the God Emperor level. It was obvious that Li Shui'er had taught her the transformation technique. The demon eater shyly flew over and stared at Xiao He with its big eyes. Then, it knelt down respectfully and said with a voice that was like a silver bell, Yao Yao greets Lord Father. Yao Yao. Xiao He's lips trembled a few times. He carefully sized up the demon eater. His body shivered, and he stretched out his hands to help the demon eater up subconsciously. However, he forgot that he was a spirit body. His hands passed through the demon eater's body. He smiled awkwardly and rubbed his hands together, not knowing what to do. Finally, he looked at Yi Qinghan and said anxiously, Boss Sai, Lord Xiao He, have a daughter? What should I do now? Should I give her a gift or something? Yi Qinghan turned around and quietly wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. Yu Qingcheng, fireworks, and the others also turned around. Their bodies shivered unceasingly as they sobbed. Their tears scattered in the sky again. Yao Yao, come to Uncle. Yi Qinghan forcefully suppressed the pain in his heart. He forced a smile and waved at the demon eater. Then his hand flipped, and a dazzling seven-colored divine crystal appeared. He looked at the demon eater lovingly and said, "This is a pseudo-primal chaos divine crystal. It's a gift from Uncle to you on behalf of your father. Your father loves you a lot. He's a great man. Without your father, Uncle would have died many times already. So, you can't blame him. If you want to blame someone, blame your uncle." Pseudo-primal chaos divine crystal. Lord Devour, Venerable Li Quan, and Emperor Yu shivered. They knew the value of this item. It was a rare treasure that could create a rank 9 expert. Yi Qinghan had so many sons, but he gave it to the demon eater as a gift for their first meeting? Boss, it's too precious. Of course, Xiao He knew the value of this item, so he was more flustered. Li Shui'er got Venerable Li Quan's message. Seeing Lord Devour's face, she also knew how precious this item was. As she was about to say something, Yi Qinghan's resolute eyes stopped her. Yao Yao, on the other hand, didn't understand. She grabbed him, smiled sweetly, bowed, and bounced back to Li Shui'er's side. She said with a tender smile, "Thank you, Uncle." Yao Yao has always known that father and uncle are great people. Mother has told me many stories about father and you. Then, the demon eater instinctively turned to Xiao He. Her smile was a little forced, and her beautiful eyes were a little bit gloomy. Although Xiao He was alive, he could talk, and his power was comparable to a rank 9 expert. However, he didn't have a real body, so it felt a little strange. With Yi Qinghan's powerful consciousness, he could obviously easily sense the little Yao Yao's abnormality. He felt pain in his heart once again. He let out a long breath and said resolutely, Yao Yao, please believe me. I will definitely think of every possible way to kill Shinta, obtain the body-stealing secret technique, and help Little Black reconstruct his true body. Shinta, I must kill you." His voice was sonorous, filled with endless pain and anger, echoing above the entire Tsang city. It was so desolate. Chapter 1160. Yi Qinghan's group stayed in the Fire Dragon continent for a month. They toured the continent with Xiao He and his wife and children, following the path that Yi Qinghan had taken in the past. Honorable Li Quan was accompanied by Yu Duanfei and the Thunder Monarch. Li Quan doted on his only granddaughter, Demon Eater. Yu Duanfei also doted on Yinling and Yinling. The Thunder Monarch accompanied Hua Yin-er's daughter every day and was extremely happy. Although his children had never seen Yi Qinghan since they were young, they were all adults now. They were very respectful to Yi Qinghan. They all knew that Yi Qinghan had fought hard to protect his family, the Fire Dragon continent, and to kill his way back to the divine world for revenge. He was even stranded in another plane. Now that he was back, he was overjoyed. Even if he blamed him, it disappeared without a trace. Yi Qinghan doted on Demon Eater very much, even more than his own children. He brought her everywhere he went. Demon Eater had not cultivated to the God Arch realm and could not transform into a human. She was considered underage as a super divine beast. She doted on her uncle from the bottom of her heart. Demon Eater was very happy. She immediately became familiar with Yi Qinghan, and their relationship was very good. Although Yu Qingcheng and the rest blamed Yi Qinghan for not forgetting his romantic nature in such a dangerous place, Pandora's existence made the girls accept him. But since Yi Qinghan brought him back, the girls could only accept him. Pandora was very pure and was quickly liked by the girls. After a month, they were like family. Pandora was completely at ease and settled down. The group stayed in the Fire Dragon continent for a month before setting off for the reincarnation mystic realm. The Fire Dragon continent was a material plane. It was small and lacking in spiritual energy. It was not good for cultivation. Yi Tianlong and the rest were not willing to leave the Fire Dragon continent. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to bring some talented disciples to the reincarnation mystic realm to be nurtured. The 9-story pagoda flew away under the gazes of millions of warriors. Countless sad and hopeful gazes were left behind. Miss Sinan, do you really plan to be alone for the rest of your life? Fengzi sighed and looked at Long Sinan, who was looking at the sky with a gloomy look in her eyes. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to stay with him forever. I've loved him before, and that's enough. Long Sinan shook her head slightly as a sweet smile appeared on her lips. She did not say anything else. Miss, why didn't you let Frost the Arch take you away? In the Dark Moon Hotel, an old man with a hunched back looked at Dark Moon, who was standing in the backyard, and sighed deeply. The coquettish landlady of the barbarian city, and Yi smiled faintly, turned around and walked into the front hall, leaving a sentence. Little man, he belongs to the Sea of Stars, and I, Dark Moon, belong to the Dark Moon Hotel. My lord, here's another pseudo-chaos divine crystal. Who do you think we should give it to? On the 9th floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Yi Qinghan, Lord Devour, and Yao Ji were sitting in a small hall, discussing something. Lord Devour was a little surprised. You don't want to give it to Sahan? Of course, I want to give it to her. I even want to give it to each of the kids. I owe them a lot. However, at this critical moment, how can we let them waste it? They don't have much experience in fighting, martial techniques, or comprehension of the martial path. Yi Qinghan's expression was resolute. Clearly, he had considered this matter carefully. He continued, therefore, this pseudo-chaos divine crystal can only be given to one of Venerable Li Quan, Monarch Yu, Duanfei Yu, or Yao Ji to strengthen our side. Thunder Emperor, you don't need to ask. His innate endowment isn't bad. I'm sure he wants to cultivate to level 9. If so, we shouldn't waste Yao Yao's crystal. This kid's innate endowment isn't bad. It's a waste to refine it now. Moreover, she has the innate abilities of the soul-devouring beast and the dream demon dragon mount. Her future will be limitless. Lord Devour said resolutely. Pondering for a while, he looked at Yao Ji and asked, Yao Ji, do you want it? Do you want to refine it? Yao Ji shook her head. I don't want it. My competence is too low, and my comprehension of the martial path is too low. Refining it won't be as good as the other 3. I should continue to study my restrictions. All right then. Lord Devour made up his mind. Give these 2 pseudo-chaos divine crystals to Little Yu and Li Quan. They have enough experience in fighting, and they've been cultivating for a long time. It's almost impossible for them to break through. Yu Duanfei still has a chance to break through to level 9. Lei Zhen's chance is even bigger. Where's Yu Duanfei? I'll explain it to him. Yi Qinghan nodded. Lord Devour was right, but he still felt a little guilty for the beast-devouring beast. Suddenly, he remembered Shinto Wuji's divine crystal and decided to give it to her. Shinto Wuji had refined the pseudo-chaos divine crystal and fused it with his own divine crystal. Although it wasn't a pseudo-chaos divine crystal anymore, it was still 100 times more precious than a Venerable's divine crystal. Listening to Yi Qinghan, Lord Devour nodded, took the divine crystal from Yi Qinghan, and teleported away. Shortly, he returned with a pseudo-chaos divine crystal. Then, he summoned Emperor Yu and Venerable Li Quan, giving them 2 divine crystals. Emperor Yu and Venerable Li Quan couldn't help smiling. Level 9. Who didn't want to reach level 9? Especially Emperor Yu, who was lucky enough to break through to the Venerable realm. He didn't expect that he would have a chance to become a level 9 expert. Although it was just a pseudo-level 9, just the fact that he could use the space power would put him above all the Venerables. Then, Lord Devour summoned Thunder Emperor and Yu Duanfei again, explaining that Yi Qinghan had already told him about Lei Zhen, so he didn't mind. Although Yu Duanfei felt it was a pity when Lei Zhen glanced over, he immediately expressed that he didn't mind. Yi Qinghan wasn't in the mood to cultivate. He spent his days chatting with his wives and children. His sons and daughters were by his side, enjoying the happiness of a family. Among his wives and children, Yu Qingqing's cultivation speed was the fastest. She had reached the peak of God King realm. Her strange divine sound law was something that even a 5th grade war god couldn't match. Yi Sahan had reached the peak of God General, and was about to break through to the God King realm. Her sons and daughters were at least at the third level of heaven god. None of them had refined divine crystals. All of them had comprehended the law to become gods. Yi Qinghan was very pleased. The demon devourer was the most talented. She was born around the same time as Yi Qinghan's children, but she had already reached the first level of God King realm. Even Yi Sahan had to admit that she wasn't as talented as her. Although her personality was as weird as Xiao Hei's, under Lier's influence, she was very diligent in her cultivation. This made Xiao Hei feel ashamed and proud. Xiao Hei seemed to have matured a lot during this time. In front of the demon devourer and Yi Qinghan's children, she was very serious and put on airs. However, after getting to know each other, she reverted to her old ways. She often bragged about her heroic deeds to Yi Qinghan's children, which made Yi Qinghan not know whether to laugh or cry. Yi Qinghan had successfully brought Supremacy Li Quan, Thunder Emperor, Yu Emperor, and Yu Duanfei out of the divine realm. Everyone's worries and knots had been resolved. In addition, Xiao Hei had completely evolved. His overall strength was comparable to a fake 9th grade. Everyone was in a good mood. The Soul Emperor Pavilion was joyous and harmonious. After 4 months of flight, the Soul Emperor Pavilion finally landed on the reincarnation plane. Li Shishir and Jida came out to welcome them. Jida was in 9th grade, so he couldn't enter a material plane. Otherwise, it would collapse. Of course, a medium plane like the reincarnation mystic realm could be entered at will, so he stayed here. Yi Qinghan and Jida were happy to see each other. Jida treated him very well, like a real brother. Moreover, the two of them had similar interests. Gid saw Pandora beside Yu Qingcheng and laughed mischievously. He transmitted his voice and said, "Little Han, you're awesome. Big brother really admires you. Not only did you come back from a different plane, you even brought back a charming beauty. Are you going to wander around or pick up girls?" Yi Qinghan looked at Jida's side and saw Li Shishir's tender eyes. He chuckled and said, "Big brother, you're not bad either. I heard that you didn't even manage to get your hands on Li Shishir before Sir came to pick us up. You managed to get your hands on her in less than a year. Just one word for it." The two of them looked at each other and laughed. Their expressions were extremely wretched. It was as if heroes appreciated each other. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.